My mistakes. Oh, after all this time, I'm ever stronger than ever be.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way
of
to...
October 2020. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to a new week. Ndu Oko is in the house. Good morning, Ndu.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
I am well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Did you have a good weekend?
It's good to see you. Yes, I did.
Fantastic. Good to see you.
I did have a good weekend.
Splendid.
Were you all in black today?
Here come the woman in black. There's a song for everything, I'm telling you. I don't know. It just kind of happened.
Just happened? Okay. C.T. Muga.
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Eric Latif.
How are you doing?
I am very well, thank you.
Titi, could you use one more newspaper?
Yes, there's space for one more. I'm a bit of a hoarder.
I can see that.
Yes. You know, it's very good for the self-esteem. Just piling newspapers.
Okay. Okay.
You look informed.
You look thoroughly informed. You look like you're a person who...
Like I was looking at that
The daily business.
And then you shuffle. Then you shuffle. Then you go back to where you started. Yes. The star. But the star was there. Why didn't you just say the star?
Just you wanted to show people that you know you have many.
No, not only do you have many, you read many.
You read many, yes.
If there isn't reading attached to the many, not very useful. However, one of the things that I found particularly interesting on the weekend was how it is our information in the media morphs with time. Meaning, headlines on the weekend are not as, should I say, as bold. Here I've looked for a nice tipped word, bold, as one sees them on weekdays. No. I looked through and I realized weekends, they're almost reasonable. You look at the headline and you read the article that follows, you say, yeah, it resonates. Okay. But come Monday, Tuesday,
It goes
Wednesday.
crazy.
Yeah? Hey, you look, you say, okay, this is what's happening. Goodness. Outrage. What? Anyway. Hey, it's the beginning of a new week.
It is, eh? You were saying your weekend was too short.
My weekend was long, actually.
Oh, it was too long.
It was not too long.
It was long.
It was long. It was it took the length of time that weekends are supposed to take.
As opposed to...
The other weekends, which were brief.
Okay. I see.
So this was a proper weekend.
Proper weekend.
It's interesting because everybody seems to be out and about. On Mombasa Road, on Saturday night alone, there were 11 accidents between Siokimau and Nyayo Stadium roundabout.
Between
11.
what time and what time?
Between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m.
Okay, so there are those who had the accidents before 11. Then there are those who waited for 4 o'clock to have the accident.
This is just Mombasa Road. We don't even go to Langata Road.
But that was likely to happen. Do you remember what happened when this sort of opening happened in the UK economy? Now, there, the laws have been strict even prior to COVID. So the issue of drinking and driving doesn't arise. You drink, you take a cab. But people who just simply collapsed, you drink, your legs tell you, I'm not walking.
So you stand up and then your
You
face
stand
meets
up.
the ground.
Yes, exactly. And then you're talking to the ground, and the ground isn't helping you much. Then you realize you can't walk with your face.
True definition of vitukwa ground need
Yes,
different.
you need different kabisa. It happened. And I mean, you looked at the pictures. Some of them were clips, and you said, "Ooh, what are they doing? Soaking themselves in the stuff." So,
It's ridiculous what was happening this weekend.
yeah,
People feel, I don't know, emboldened, brazened, alcohol.
brave new world.
I'm telling you,
and
it's
know
like you've never tasted the stuff before.
And for those who earn a salary, they hadn't been given enough time to dispense. Yes, to do away with the salary.
So this weekend
So
presented
there
a
was still
perfect
money.
opportunity.
Oh yes.
We'll wake up this morning and it's all gone, and you feel,
I don't know why it is. You see, there's this consumption that gives the impression that one isn't actually consuming, one is storing it. Because there's a limit beyond which actually here, you can't even utter one word. Someone begins to say something, and you know because the hand moves, then the mouth opens, and then it stays open. Then they take a deep breath, then they put their hand down, then they close their mouth. Nothing has come out. You realize it's too much effort.
Yeah.
you seem to have studied this behavior really well.
Yes, says like this, saying this word. See, it's in my head. Let's just stay there.
Forget it.
It's not coming out of my mouth. Leave it. So that was likely to happen.
Yeah, it's unfortunate though.
Remember when Nairobi first opened up, the lockdown was lifted. Remember how people moved? People moved out. And on the weekends, we haven't stopped moving out yet.
No.
Now, throw in now this time when you're now allowed. It's not 9, it's 11. 2 more hours.
Your mind tells you, or the mind has told a lot of people that, okay, we have some more time.
Yes,
But
you do.
as you hear what was happening on Friday on Mombasa Road, 11 is just a suggestion.
Yeah, it's like, okay, try and be home. try
and be
It's just a
home.
suggestion.
11. Try
what
to
they
be
had.
home.
Try and be
you
home
see-
by 3.
Yes, because
That's
when
what you hear.
when we had curfew up to 9, you knew midnight was the deadline.
No, curfew is still 11.
Ah,
If I'm home by 5, it'll be great.
in fact,
I'll be okay.
it's an excuse for people to come home in the morning. So, it was around
Uhuru
11.
opened.
I couldn't leave. So what we did, I waited until night was opened at 4.
That's why I've come now.
Yes, now
Be home no later than 4 a.m.
That's terrible.
But it tells you something about, this is not our people as Kenyans, but human beings. Yes. There are things we consider to be integral to what we perceive to be our freedoms. And when we feel they've been interfered with, it's like now we are trying to catch up.
Yeah.
Now let's do for the 3 months that we didn't get an
Yes.
opportunity to, let's knock this thing out of the park.
Yes. You see, I figured that would happen. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't move. Got home, stayed. Saturday morning, went for a walk, went for a little shopping. Before people woke up, came back, stayed. So it was long. Yes.
Okay.
No wonder it was long for you.
It was very long. And I rested. Because I figured if this is what I've been seeing in other parts of the world, and we're human beings, and we're in Kenya, with our unique peculiarity. I mean,
Bas.
you never overburden that particular. Yes.
Yeah.
I said, this one, no. And I wasn't, and I live near a cultural establishment, which on Friday I noticed, after the announcement, they started refurbishing it, sorting out things.
Yeah.
They had even boarded it with, you could
Yeah.
get in. They were opening up. I said, here,
This weekend.
I will not be out of my house after 4 o'clock. But again, let's wait and see what the next weekend holds.
Let's wait and see indeed.
Yeah.
Well, today's show, we're going to be discussing a number of things. We, of course, have to look at what has happened over the weekend politically. The Deputy President attended a church service somewhere in Muranga, and in the build-up to that and after that, 2 people died. The former Prime Minister, ODM leader, was, decided to have an impromptu. This afternoon, I decided to just go around and say hello to people of Kangware, and he went back home. So we'll be talking about that, politics, and what has happened over the weekend. We'll also be having an interesting conversation today with somebody who is a chairman of an organization that controls how much money is that organization worth?
Actually, they are the biggest. That organization, if you look at it in entirety, they are the biggest investors, single investors in the country.
Private.
Private, $1 trillion.
Imagine.
And counting.
Imagine. So we'll be talking to the chairman of Jubilee Holdings. Jubilee Holdings runs Jubilee Insurance and others, many affiliates. And like City is saying, in terms of investing in the country, in terms of the worth and the value of what it's invested in the Nairobi Securities Exchange, I think comes second to NSSF.
Yes. It
After
comes-
NSSF, then now we come to Jubilee Holdings and Jubilee's kind of investments, right?
Yes, you do. And also, you see, there are other national or international corporations that probably could argue they have spent more and invested more. But if you're talking about a private commercial enterprise that encompasses, if you're talking from health and to commerce, to industry, to the hospitality industry, my goodness, $1 trillion.
Quite something.
And counting.
Quite
They're
something.
big.
Quite something. But let's begin where we always begin. Let's look at what's happened over the weekend with COVID-19 numbers in the country.
Sure. Eyebrows raising in terms of the increment in cases in the country. 39,427 is where the numbers stand today. And if we're looking at what was recorded over the weekend, specifically Saturday and Sunday, 261 cases on the 3rd of October, which was Saturday. And yesterday, 243 cases on the 4th of October. Unfortunately, so 243 new cases yesterday and 3 new deaths, taking the number of deaths in Kenya to 731. And now overall cases of 39,427. So like I said, eyebrows raising because there's a risk. And according to what experts are saying, Kenyans have thrown caution to the wind following the relaxing of some of the rules. Now experts say there's risk of a second wave. Rather, there's high risk of a second wave as infections surge in the counties. Okay, if you just take a quick look at that in terms of what the Ministry of Health is saying. Amref Health Africa Group CEO Dr. Githinji Gitahi said this trend was expected. We know that he's one of the ones who spoke out earlier about this. The curve had only flattened in the urban centers. The cases were declining in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kiambu, Kajiado, Machakos, Unfortunately, the cases have started to peak in rural counties and thus affecting the positivity rate. Before the measures were relaxed, Kenya's COVID positivity rate was 4.7, but now it's at 5.7. Saturday, it was 7.7, the highest in over a week, followed by Friday, 6.8, and Tuesday, 5.8. On Friday, Nakuru recorded the highest number of cases ever, the sharpest increase in 24 hours after returning 75 patients against Thursday, 13, edging out Nairobi and Mombasa, 2 of the 5 urban areas with the highest caseload. Kisumu had 7 on Friday against 37 on Saturday, a trend which is expected to continue in the rural and remote counties. So we're seeing an increase in the cases around the country. It's expected that this was going to happen. It does seem, however, that there's been a relaxation on individual and collective measures.
So
being
explain to
taken.
me why this was expected to happen this week.
Well, I don't know if it was expected to happen this week or it was expected to happen when there was more movement in the country.
Yeah, so why is it happening this week?
Because it's when it's the week after, more movement was allowed, I guess.
Which more movement?
It's because you can't say that there are more cases being tested. It's clear. That,
And even the more movement we're talking about, I mean, what more movement? There was still movement from within the country.
There was.
It's not like there was any lifting of a cessation of movement.
That had already
The
been
cessation
done.
of movement was lifted a long time ago. So why this week?
I don't know. It just would seem. It could be that in terms of relaxation, people, and I want to be careful or cautious to say that now you say that people are moving a lot more than they were, and so now you'll see infections of people who didn't have it 2 weeks ago and now do have it because we don't know exactly what those numbers were.
Let me
Were
rein
people
on-
coming back to this to urban centers from where they had gone in expectation of the lifting or opening up of the economy, and more establishments then being opened? So are people coming back? I mean, those are things that we have to look at.
Let me rain on that parade a little bit. When we get results as they're given to us, let's say by our people here in this lovely country of ours, Kenya, how current is that information?
That's what I was going to say, because you can't say that it's people who didn't have it last week and then suddenly have it this week.
Hey, Kenya.
Yeah. Because
It's a very valid point.
Yes.
I mean, we even saw from the Director of Health, Dr. Patrick Amos, talking about even the deaths being reported. It's not, some of them are not just in the last 24 hours.
no,
It's, after looking back, and, some of
Yes.
them are even a week old.
So these ones could be those tests that had to wait for 10 days to get the results. And these are the ones that
All
we are
right,
recording
There
now.
you go.
you take that as an estimate and ask yourself, weighted. When there's a queue, the queue forms. So if these results are 10 days old, the ones which follow will also be 10 days old.
So going back to my thing that I've been harping on
So it's
here.
not in the last 24 hours. It's in the last 2 weeks.
No, they're not saying. They're saying what has been reported in the last 24 hours. Okay, but this goes to my thing that if that's the case, right? If we're looking at results from 2 weeks ago, that means the ones for really for today could even be higher, based on that. Again, going to decisions that you make based on information, then is faulty.
It actually boils down to something very simple. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. So just making decisions, okay? Because
We don't know. You see, no, they may actually have a better picture because there is the information of what happened before, cumulatively.
Yep.
There is what is happening now. It is within the recent past.
Yep.
Okay? So you can figure out what's actually happening. You can tell. But the accuracy that we're speaking of, it's like we're pegging it to what's happening on a daily basis. Now, that we cannot tell because we're not getting reports of what's happening on a daily basis.
The problem is in the reporting.
Yes.
You don't report and say that this is, information from the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
You paint it as if it's information gathered within the last 24 hours.
Yes. Now,
Within the last 24 hours, we tested this X number of samples and we found this to be positive. And that's not the case.
therein lies the problem. Now, we know that there has been talk of a rapid test that can give you a result within, say, half an hour, or even an hour, coming out. But still in those final stages of being tested and being released. Remember, it's only one that has been allowed by WHO for emergency. Okay? It isn't there for public consumption. Now, if that is the case, we do know that these tests take time. We do know. But they don't take a week.
no, they don't take a week. And I'm just going to give the example. I spoke to my sister over the weekend, and they've gone back into total lockdown because the introduction of this same rapid test that you're talking about was done in certain parts of Myanmar. And then they shut down the country because they recorded 1,000 cases in 7 hours. So they said, you know what? If this is the second wave, but it seems that now is when the true picture of even the first wave is coming to light. Forget about the second wave, because they had not tested with regularity as much as they would have liked to. Then they really didn't know the full picture.
No.
And
Let's
now,
take a
because
break.
of that, they know they have a better idea of what it is.
Time for us to take our break. Weather, 19 minutes after 6. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Our live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice
All right, this
FM.
Monday morning, Nairobi looks partly cloudy at 14 degrees. It'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 13 today. Nyeri is mostly cloudy at 13 degrees, going to highs of 26. Nakuru at 13 degrees, clear skies. Rain expected later, however, with highs of 25 and lows of 12. Eldoret, clear skies at 12, highs of 23 and lows of 12, with a chance of thunderstorms later on. It looks like a wet afternoon in Kisumu, highs of 29 and lows of 19 today, where it currently is, with clear skies and a few clouds. Clear skies in Kakamega at 16, going to highs of 27 and lows of 15, with a chance of rain later. It looks like rain in Mombasa as well. The highs will be at 29 today and lows of 24. And in Malindi, partly cloudy conditions at 25, we'll go to highs of 29. Kampala is partly cloudy at 18 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 17, with a chance of rain later on. It's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam, expecting foggy conditions later with highs of 32. It's going to be a warm day today and lows of 22. Temperatures continue to rise around the continent, and it's cloudy in Johannesburg, however, at 16 degrees, and will rise to a high of 24, and those clouds will turn into rain later on. Scattered thunderstorms are the order of the morning this Monday in Lagos at 31 degrees. That'll be the high today and coming down to lows of 23, and those rains will continue well into tomorrow and Wednesday. It's mostly sunny in Beijing, going east at 17. We'll see highs of 19 and lows of 6, and the sun will come through till about 8 p.m. in Beijing. It's a rainy morning in Paris at 11, highs of 15 and lows of 11, looking at thunderstorms continuing through most parts of today. London at 10 degrees is partly cloudy. Now that the marathon is over, it'll be marathon rains, highs of 17 and lows of 10. And finally, in New York, still Sunday nights, partly cloudy conditions at 17, go to highs of 19 and lows of 13.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Muga, I want to say good morning to Kokomo Victor, who says is tuned in from Sokomjinga in Nakuru. Well represented. Joang George in the Nairobi metropolitan area. Haron Starkers inside from Migori, the Situation Room. Bedi Asli, obviously, tuning in from Macha, as you do every morning. And Dennis Kidero in Malindi, tuned in. Polisi Junior Atetwe, Pamoja at Lukume Cabras. All of you, good morning, and thank you very much for choosing the Situation Room to be the one that you wake up to each and every morning. Siti Muga, today's proverb.
Yes.
This one must be heavy.
No, it's not that.
He's choosing between four.
Actually, I'm actually not choosing between four. I'm actually choosing between two.
Okay.
Now, today being a Monday, you see, the debate that is going on in my head is, which of these many lovely proverbs? Huh? Okay. Let me choose a simple one that is not difficult to decipher. Okay? When deeds speak, words are nothing. I have, in the past, quoted a proverb that is almost similar to this one. Yes. But there's a twist. The other one spoke about silence being akin to wisdom. All right? This one says, when deeds speak, words are nothing.
Yep.
So akin to the other one, actions speak louder.
Yes,
than
the
words.
other one hinted more towards silence being akin to wisdom. Yes,
When deeds speak, words mean nothing.
yes. Words are nothing.
Words are nothing. Okay. Let's look at the headlines. Ndu,
Yeah,
start.
yes. Okay, so let's look at the front page of the Standard. We know the London Marathon took place yesterday. One people, two worlds. The pride and shame of Kenya is what it's being called. Double face. As the starter gun went off in London to signal Kenya's chase for glory, chaos rocked Muranga in a parallel race for ignominy. In the end, the London win was fouled by loss of 2 lives in political violence. What will it take to stop this madness? So one people, two worlds, London Marathon women's champion Bridget Kosgei and men's runner-up Vincent Kipchumba when they brought honours to their country On the right are scenes from Kenol in Muranga, where rival groups engaged in street fights and appended a church function attended by Deputy President William Ruto. So that was quite unfortunate because 2 lives were lost. So 2 things happening there when the much-awaited London Marathon took place in the morning, and we know that Eliud Kipchoge was,
He was
unable to
hakuwa anasikia poa.
literally was unable to perform in the way in which many thought that he would. And it was said that 25 kilometers, or he said rather that 25 kilometers into the race, he one of his ears had blocked. And we know that with runners, that takes a toll on their balance and all sorts of things. So he was and throughout the race, we heard commentators saying there must be something wrong here because this is just not him. Either he has a medical problem and he's not able to communicate the same. So he came in 8th. He was expected to be 1st. While this was going on in London, at home, on the day tenacious Kenyan athletes were asserting Kenya's pride to the world in London, local politicians were underlining their incorrigible appetite for violent approach to political mobilization. So we go on to say the glistening glory won in London by the sweat of Bridget Koskei's brow was fouled by the violent death of 2 people following Deputy President William Ruto's chaotic entry into Kenol, a sleepy market centre in the outskirts of Thika. It is the conundrum that defines the Kenyan identity. Hard-working citizens on one end who toil all day, long to bring honor to their country and families, and another lot of conceited leadership, whose obsession with power justifies every means of accessing it, including the loss of lives. Interesting, this play between these 2 events took place yesterday. Parallels can be drawn, I guess, but many things were going on and happening, and it's unfortunate that this happened locally.
Would you not say that deeds have spoken?
Deeds have spoken. Deeds in this case, on one side, many would say fortunately and unfortunately, deeds have spoken.
Yes, in both cases. The race was run, the race was won, and a political race began on this side, and you begin to wonder if anything was won.
Right.
Yes, something was won, infamy.
Infamy was won.
Yes.
Lives were lost, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Lives were lost, unfortunately.
Unfortunate. The BBI report will be unveiled in a few days, according to ODM leader Raila Odinga. That's page 4 of the Standard and page 6 of the Nation. ODM leader says BBI report will be out in a matter of days. This is the number of what time that ODM leader is saying this? It'll be out in just a couple of days and it will be out.
Soon.
This is not the first time that he's saying this. It's not the second, it's not the third time. This number of days, let's wait and see exactly how many it's going to take for the BBI report to come out and then what happens after that. And he was speaking yesterday saying the BBI report is ready in a matter of days. Uhuru and I will receive it. We'll publicize it for everybody to read. So I get surprised when I hear some people oppose it. How do you oppose what you have not seen?
It's an extremely valid point. So how can you even discuss it?
Yeah, how can you oppose or encourage something that you've not seen?
Well, opposition is a discussion in a sense. You are simply pointing out to things that you think you disagree with on this thing which nobody has seen except those who perhaps are preparing it. And yet it's supposed to be a national document that's supposed to herald a bright new dawn. Well,
the argument could be on both sides. For those who oppose it, how do you oppose something you've not seen? And then how do you also support something that you've not seen?
well, that puts an
The other question is, why haven't we seen it? I mean, it's not like it's being prepared somewhere on the moon and then it's going to be brought to us. It's not like Moses has gone up the mountain and he's the only one who's having a conversation with the Lord, and then we don't know exactly what God is telling him. This is a report of a compilation of what people have said. So it's very possible that, everybody who's having a conversation is having a conversation based on what they have seen happening. We had a series of rallies just before Rega was paused. What was happening around the country? It was a conversation about BBI. And what was that? It was validation of a previous report that had been produced. So you can basically
was that
deduce.
previous report made public?
To everybody, as in terms of printed copies so that everybody can read.
Online,
no,
if
but
the
it was made public in terms of it was published in the papers. We had the copies of it.
No. made public is like the Constitution. Anyone can access it. You can access it online. I mean, it's not something that you don't need to struggle to find it.
Yeah.
So if you're discussing it, all you need to do is use whatever gadget you have to look for it,
And
find it,
right.
and find whatever relevant information you want. And why it becomes, yes, exactly. That's when it's public. If published in the papers, how many people read the newspapers in this country?
Those that are commenting.
Yes. Now, those who are commenting, are they the only ones who give the opinion? The answer is no. But why it becomes important is because this public money used for a public exercise that's supposed to benefit the Mwananchi, you cannot talk about a benefit of something I don't know. It's not possible. At least when we are taxed, we have an idea of where the money was purposed to go. Whether it goes there is a different discussion.
Or at least you had an idea.
No, we have an idea.
Right.
There's a budget. We are told we want to spend this on this. We're told we want to spend this. At least we are informed. So from that information, you can say, you said you'll spend money on this. You haven't. Or if you have, tell us how you've spent it so that we can understand this. But this one, we have this document that we want to present to you, which is going to help us do A, B, C, D, including a referendum. Okay? And yet we don't know the content.
We don't know the content of
and
that.
our money has been...
Keep holding on. It's coming out in a few days.
No.
29 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at the traffic.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Good morning. What has it got in store on the roads? If you're not out on Langata Road already, then what we're being told, be ready to sleep in traffic today. It's bumper to bumper on Langata Road all the way from the turnoff at Magadi Road and then leading all the way straight through past Wilson Airport and to the T-Mall roundabout. You can get off going to Bagathi Way, not too bad at the moment, but it's moving along, crawling along just so slowly. And as you get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout also, that'll take you a good minute. But you should be all right. Okay? Thika Road today, all the way to the CBD is smooth. Not too much in terms of problems, but we're going to keep an eye on that and see how that looks. We expect Mombasa Road to clog up in no time from now. This is just what we expect to see over the next few weeks. And in the industrial area as well, as you're trying to get into the CBD as well, that will take you some time, but it's not too bad. It's not a bumper-to-bumper situation just yet. All right, so things are just starting to heat up. We're going to take a look in a short while and see how that may have changed. We'll look also out of Nairobi as well and see what's happening in the other towns of the country. But for now, if you've left, you're in good stead. If you haven't, you might want to rethink that one. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Text us as well on 40217.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
It's a very special day for you and people like you. Today is World Teachers Day. Happy World Teachers Day, Mwalimu.
Thank you very much, sir.
So teachers all over the world are celebrating the World Teachers Day today amid unusual circumstances presented by COVID-19. However, there will be no processions held to honor the profession. According to the TSC CEO Nancy Masharia, teachers have played a very important role in this period because they have been sharing Ministry of Health safety messages to learners and their communities. Despite the pandemic, many teachers have been busy engaging learners in academics, life skills, and guidance and counseling. Yep. So that is actually contained in the Nation, and the Standard talks about week 2 of teachers in school minus pupils.
So the question, of course, that keeps being asked, though there have been attempts to respond to that question, what are the teachers doing in school?
Preparing. See that preparation that you're asking about?
Sorry, Eric, this one will not be responded to by that one word. The details of that preparation, what exactly are
I've
they?
seen video clips of, teachers even playing a ringa roses,
They're bored.
No, that's they're
They're
that's what.
preparing to teach students how to play.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
It's okay.
That's part of it. Also, you've
We
seen
don't know
other-
how long they've been playing this ring around the roses, but it's okay. Let them just be playing for now.
You know what is of interest? Yeah? It is all good to ring around the roses. But how many of this has to be, of course, primary school or kindergarten. How many children will have seen a rose, a plant, the flower? How many may even have seen a picture of a rose?
Well, what happens when they're made to sing these songs?
Yes.
Those are details.
I'd rather they even sang Kanu Yajenga Nchi.
Kanu. Did you say Kanu? As in
This be
party?
a song.
That's why they do not sing a ring around the roses. They sing a ringa roses. You're the ones who are coming up with your own songs here. This is a ringa roses.
Fine, Eric. Point validly made
All right.
Okay.
and validly accepted.
So, these people in Nicolomani. So there's national news. It's taking a 2-page spread today. 164 billion shillings gold project kicks up a storm. Residents of Kakamega, Vihiga, Kisumu, and Siaya counties have demanded to know what they stand to gain from this particular project. A few weeks, maybe months now, when we looked at this story opening up and the new firm that was going to come in and mine the gold, and hoping that the people of the community at least would, get something. Controversy now is brewing over the 164 billion gold prospecting project in the Lihanda corridor of Western Kenya, with residents demanding details of contracts signed between the government and Shanta Gold, a UK firm with vast mining operations in Tanzania. Through their leaders, the residents of the expansive gold belt that straddles Kakamega, Vihiga, Kisumu, and Siaya counties want to know what they stand to gain from the project. Shanta Gold, which is also what they talked about months ago. Shanta Gold, which is AIM listed in London, recently announced that Busia and Kakamega counties could be sitting on high-grade gold deposits, literally sitting on a gold mine, on a scale only comparable to the Great Abiti Gold Belt, which stretches from Wawa in Ontario to Val d'Or in Quebec, Canada. So there's big money here. There's big gold here. And the history of this project has dated back to 1929. And we're now looking at, so there was small scale and alluvial gold mining between 1929 and 1945, all the way to 2020, where we see Shanta Gold acquiring 100% of Acacia from Barrick Gold, which now gives them the right to go ahead and mine.
And this should be a cause for happiness, jubilation?
Not quite yet, because the residents or the people in the area associated are saying they really don't know what is going on. They know that there are these contracts that have been signed between the leaders and between their leaders essentially and this gold mining firm, but they don't know how they stand to benefit. They don't know how they're going to be involved, and there has been insistence that they don't want things to go down the way it has in other areas. Tullow Oil, for example, in northern Kenya. They want to be part of the process from the very beginning, is what they're saying. So, according to the firm, once the economic viability of the project is ascertained,
What on earth were they signing if this had not been ascertained?
Well, that's the thing. So according to them, they're still in the exploration stage. And these are the questions that residents and concerned individuals are asking now, coming together as an association to ask what exactly is going on.
You know the thing about minerals, as is with oil, they tend to follow things that are referred to as veins, meaning you can tell the pattern of where it exists, either by looking at the soil around it, the rocks around it. Before, you actually needed some physical labor to understand it. With modern technology, you don't. Just the formation of the land mass and whatever's around it can give you a very clear indication of what you have under the earth. Why? Because gold has been mined all over the world, so people have gotten to understand what to look for. Now, unfortunately, anything that has to do with minerals in this country is always shrouded in more mystery than than any mystery book or movie that you can come across. There are so many stories around it, you're never really sure which is which. Did we not have a story of the riches that awaited people in Kwale with the
Titanium mining.
Yes.
Mining, yeah.
And this isn't something, there's no iffy but perhaps about it. It's being mined. It's something that is needed.
Same thing in Turkana with Tolo oil.
Suddenly, yes. Vagueness creeps in and suddenly you're not really sure what's happening there. And then now, if you go to Taita Hills, iron ore, silence, almost absolute mute silence about it. And yet we are mining iron ore in the Taita Hills. We mine it. First grade. I don't know what it's
And
called.
rare earth and all.
Yes, so I don't know if it's exactly called first grade. That's me calling it first grade.
It's okay.
But top of the line. And most of it has been ending up in China. And it didn't begin yesterday. Do you even hear talk about it? No. So we have an entire department that deals with mining. Do they ever come out and tell us what these things are? All you hear is private studies that tell you, this particular region has natural gas. This particular region has natural coal, as opposed to false coal. This particular region has, we hear. But do we hear a concerted effort by the government to inform you about what wealth lies under the earth in various regions in this country? No.
And how it's going to benefit people. I think
Yes,
it's just
no.
kept like a state secret and all that.
It is, yes. And yet, the truth of the matter is the whole purpose of having this is that the country should benefit.
Should benefit.
Not very far from this particular country of ours. If you just go down south, 4 hours flight, you'll end up in South Africa. Okay? Actually, you'll end up in, if you take flight, Oliver Tambo International Airport. The reason why that country became what it was, apart from just working and benefit from the back of the poor natives, is that they had mineral wealth. That mineral wealth built the country. Now, we are saying we have mineral wealth. I would hate to look at just across the border in DRC, whose mineral wealth is actually beyond even our own imagination.
Undiscovered.
Yes, and how it has not benefited the people. I would not really want us to go that route.
How would you manage that conversation, though, as a government? Sometimes, I just sit back and I ask myself, with the way, the expectations of the people and all, as a government, if you just went out openly and said, all right, so in this area we have possibility of some good deposits of gold, in this other area we have iron ore, here we have rare earths, here we have this and the other. How then would you manage the conversation between the agitation of the people saying, all right, so what are we going to benefit? This belongs to us. Then what benefits accrue directly to us? With a kind of, against the background of everything else that our government is handling and how our government is trying to manage its relationship with the people.
There is this thing in our constitution. I'm calling it a thing because that's what it is. But it's a requirement and a necessity. It is called public participation.
Yeah.
Which, if the government took seriously, they would have by now inculcated that need to have these discussions with their people about things that concern their lives. And this certainly would concern their lives.
Yeah.
Then comes the issue of the division of spoils. What is the arrangement? What is understandably the role of the national government? What again is the understandable role of the county government? When there are benefits, how do you divide it? Because there's always that discussion, and it can't be a constant. You know why? There is the issue of recovering what it is your investment entails. And then there's the issue of thereafter, because after a while, surely you'll have recovered if indeed this thing is as profitable as you claim.
Yeah.
Thereafter, what should the division be? So if we start, let's say, by a 90 10% arrangement, 90-10. After a period of time, it should be 80-20. Up to the point where it keeps moving to the point where it probably over a period of time it gets inversed. It should be understood. Why do I say this? Countries where the nation has actually used the natural resources to benefit those in power and their people, you see the changes in those countries. And they're colossal changes. They are rapid changes. And in the absence of that, in fact, I'm thinking of Venezuela. The oil riches that that country has, when it was properly utilized, people who would otherwise never have assumed they might get university education, because that money was being used to actually benefit the people.
Yeah.
They call the government communist, they call it what it like. But things that ordinarily would never happen happened because they had oil money.
It's true. And that's what it should be a demand that you see a direct benefit on the
Yes.
people of the country because of this resource that you have.
A
That
benefit,
should
yes.
actually be the thing.
A benefit that didn't exist before.
Didn't exist before. I mean, if
Yes.
you want to, even here on this continent, you want to look at Libya, it's just that because it's been shrouded with so many things that happened. But if you actually look at the lives of the people of Libya, for example, university education from childhood till university is free. They pay almost nothing for fuel. Their roads are in an immaculate state.
What about housing?
That direct result of a resource that they have.
Yes.
Call it what you want to call it. Dictators has ruined the country in terms of politics for it's okay.
Even piped
But look
water
at-
to the middle of the desert.
Yes.
Free amenities for its people. Free education. Housing at close to nothing.
Yes.
Somebody who is a fishmonger is able to own a home. Why?
It's time for us to take another break as we continue looking at other headlines. Onezi Kirui says he's present, and
Try again.
Chuthiman Wananyuki.
See? Got it second time.
All right. Vincent said, "Good morning, the Situation Room crew, on this first Monday of the week." Yeah. Let me assure you that the next weekend you're waiting for will be the same or even worse compared to the weekend we're just from.
Well, okay.
Vincent, why? What is it?
There's something he knows.
Who hurt you? Let's take a break. 13 minutes to 7.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I am looking at a very interesting case. Headline on the Business Daily: AG moves to seize property of SK Macharia's properties. AG office moves to seize SK Macharia's properties. Attorney General.
Okay. Why?
Okay. Well, there is a debt, a 34-year-old debt, which went to the Court of Appeal. It kept getting higher and higher. And on Friday, in Kenya Gazette notice, this gentleman, they say, was now declared bankrupt.
Wow.
Let me just read it for you. The state is set to seize the assets of media mogul SK Macharia, including Royal Media Services, after the businessman lost his appeal against a court judgment declaring him bankrupt over a 34-year debt. The AG's office on Friday issued a bankruptcy receiving order, allowing the state to take over and supervise Macharia's business with the aim of settling all his debts.
This 34-year debt, it's over what? Was it Matthew paper or what? Royal card.
It began as a debt of 500,000 shillings and has ballooned to 293.9 million shillings.
500,000.
Yes, that's what it was.
What? Uh-huh.
Okay. And that is, they say he failed to pay it. Remember, 34 years, you know, that's 3 decades plus,
Yes.
3.5 decades. And has gone on and on and on and on and on until now.
This is 1986.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I think that there's a lot really to actually learn from that story and getting to understand the background of it, and then what happens to.
I'll
Well,
say.
actually, you know this. It's very odd about this thing. Huh?
Mm.
If you go back to the history of this case, it has to do with some land that a gentleman by the name of Waithaka was supposed to have bought. Okay. He says he paid a deposit of 500,000 shillings to one Mr. S.K. Macharia and his wife. Okay. In the 1980s. Okay. And he says the couple acknowledged receipt of the money, and but Mr. Waithaka still owed money. Now, why am I mentioning this? This case has gone on, and this report also indicates that there were mentions and there were demands that Mr. S.K. Macharia supposedly ignored. Okay? Lo and behold, 30 years down the line, this is what it has come to. Now, even as we sit here and talk about it, okay, what is going to come out and what we are going to hear, I'm now being a prophet,
Okay.
is that he's being picked on.
Yeah.
He's being targeted.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
being picked on.
Political.
It'll be said it is political. It'll be said he has political leanings in the direction that some people do not support. And as a result of that, he is being targeted.
Okay.
Yes. And this matter, which in my opinion could easily have been resolved, and which was not resolved, and if this report is true, simply because the amount may have been something that one assumed this I will sort out. But by the time the AG comes in and issues that order, and it is gazetted, you do have a problem on your hands.
There's a problem here.
My goodness. Let's see how it goes.
So, remember Sirisia MP,
Yes.
John Waluke, who is also on bond in a corruption case. He has now paid the fines for 57 prisoners before leaving prison. He seems to have some money on his hands, eh? The lawmaker who has been in jail for close to 4 months,
The amounts of the
Wait now.
fines?
The lawmaker who had been in jail for close to 4 months said the fines range from 1,000 to 10,000 shillings. For 57 of these fellas. And he says, I quote, "I did it in my own capacity as a legislator because I could afford it. There are a number of prisoners who have been suffering for even more than 1 year for failing to raise 1,000 shillings. We know that he was convicted in June for the theft of 297 million shillings from the National Cereals and Produce Board. We had heard him say before that he really feels that something needs to be done about the state of prisons in the country, number one, and also people having been charged and jailed for things that they did not do. This is
Wrongfully.
something for wrongful imprisonment,
Yeah.
wrongful sentencing, ignorance of the case, and maybe something that they could have gotten away with as a misdemeanor, but now have been jailed. And it's not, I mean, he talks about having porridge at 6 a.m. and lunch at 10 and dinner at 2, and then having to sleep on one side. And then it's the governor of the prisons, a prisoner like them, who would decide when you can flip over to the other side. I mean, terrible situation in the prisons. And
I wish
he's
I
going
wish
to
he
now
would take
champion.
this.
He's going to now champion change. in the
I wish
prison
he
sector.
actually could do that. You know, because what he's describing, he's not the only one who's described this. That tells you that it's the situation in our
problem.
prisons, right? So there is a very high likelihood that this is actually the situation in our prisons. There are people who are in prison wrongfully jailed. There are people who are in prison or in remand prison awaiting their cases for years and
Awaiting
years.
trial.
There are others who are living in that kind of condition. I wish it was actually possible to champion this and see change
Eric,
in our correctional
you're actually very
service.
right. There are people who probably were arrested because they were drunk and disorderly,
Yep.
went to court, somehow that went this way and that way, ended up in jail. And if you ask them, and they were actually simply forgotten.
Yep.
You get in the system, you're forgotten.
Forgotten.
So you're there 1 year, 2 years. Even you forget what it is that took you there in the first place.
As we speak, there is a man who is in jail because he was drunk and disorderly, and the gentleman who should have been in jail for robbery with violence is walking around free in Kenya at the moment, and he's in jail on a charge that was not him for the sole reason of having the same names as this other gentleman,
Also,
and things
they
were
tell us.
swapped. When
Yeah.
things were swapped.
Do you know
Okay.
what is truly interesting is that when you read about the cases of our prisons, it reminds you of prisons in the 19th century UK, where being poor was like a curse. Because you were in, yes, a government prison, but everything was bought, including food, including clothing. So even as you're waited to either be transported to some penal colony, okay, just life on a daily basis was harrowing. If you had money, it was okay being in prison because you could almost eat what you wanted, you could be visited. In short, life was very different. And if I listen to the cases that I've heard, our Kenyan penal system is not really that different. But somehow, it's one of these things that is discussed. When something comes up like this, then it disappears. The description that Mr. Waluke gave of time there, where you sleep, how you sleep, what you have. And yet, the prison services have a budget every single year for the number of prisoners they have and for the upkeep of these prisoners. Yeah. Where on God's good earth
does it go?
Yes. Same question being asked all over again. Same question.
Talk about the justice system, and it's everywhere in the world. It's anything but such a justice system.
No, it's an injustice system.
Completely. Because there are very many people who are there who are suffering and they ought not to be suffering.
And then you wonder why people go to prison and come out and immediately go back to crime. Immediately.
Yep.
So
whereas prison is supposed to be a
corrective.
rehabilitative system.
Yes.
It really is not.
This one it's an entrenchment system. So people go in there and they're hardened.
So now you compound that thing that maybe would have brought it, now is compounded.
No, they're now determined.
Yeah.
They see no way other than to follow a certain path in life. And yet that need not be the case, really.
Kenya leads peers as a key hub for dirty cash. Kenya has been ranked among the leading African nations that record high illicit financial flows, according to a new UN report. At position 24 globally, Kenya is ahead of Nigeria, which is 10 positions behind at 34, Angola 35, Egypt 46, Mauritius 51, Cameroon 53, and South Africa 58. The country has also recorded the second largest amount in returned stolen assets, according to the same reports. As at January 2020, 17 billion shillings. That makes Kenya third behind Libya at 14.2 billion and Nigeria that commands a strong lead at 1.4 trillion shillings recovered stolen cash as of early this year. This is according to UNCTAD Economic Development in Africa Report 2020 on illicit financial flows, and the continent loses 8.9 trillion shillings annually in capital flight. Not a good place to be.
Since we
this is one race you don't want to actually be first in.
Since we're talking about capital flight, headline, Standard, front page, bottom right corner. State prints 15 billion in a week to plug hole. Okay, now if you turn to page 24 of that same paper, you read the story in full, and the headline, as usual, is perhaps a little more peppered than the actual report of it. This thing called printing, most people assume that it's physical printing where you see notes churning
flying
out
off
of
the press.
No. What it actually is, central bank simply credits the treasury with that amount. Simply says, so essentially, you owe. It can be considered an overdraft, meaning you owe us this money for this period of time. But if it becomes a bit of a problem, then it can become a loan. All right? So in this case, you're talking about 15 billion. This, by the way, is not a tool that is new. No. Countries around the world are allowed, and they do use this tool when they have this sort of financial issues. The trick here is to make sure that you don't oversupply the money, because in that case, what you'll be doing is shooting up the inflation.
Yeah.
So this is what the central bank has done, and the central bank governor has tried to ensure that he has explained it in a way that would not cause alarm. Yes. It is not something that, it's not a terrible occurrence. It is something that all central banks around the world, whatever they're called, Federal Reserve.
That's what they do.
That's what they do.
Well, keep it right here for more conversations in the next hour. Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru.
All right, so the not so sleepy giant that is traffic on Mombasa Road is now awake. Traffic all the way from Lolongo, and that is heading towards Cabanas, and even thereafter, it's a clog up and it's bumper to bumper. We're likely to see this for some time now, and this leads all the way to the JKIA turnoff, and then towards Cabanas, and then towards General Motors. You have a little bit of a free space, and then as you get to Bellevue, and then moving forward, traffic starts again, and it takes you all the way then to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. And after that, all the way through Uhuru Highway and then through to Westlands. Bumper to bumper as you're trying to get into the CBD, guys. So there's traffic there. There's traffic on Langata Road today coming in through the Timor roundabout. There's also some traffic trying to get into the CBD from Jogo Road as you get to the City Stadium roundabout. That's also moving very, very slowly this morning. Coming off of Thika Road today is where we won't have too much of a headache. Kiambu Road, however, is now 5 lanes where it should be 2. Trying to get into the city or trying to join the Thika Superhighway from there also is a bit of a pain. So it's Monday morning. Everybody's out and back into the CBD. So we expect heightened levels of traffic. If you are stuck somewhere, do let us know. Tweet us on Spice FMKE, or you can send us a message as well on 40127. Let us know where you might be stuck or find an alternate route, and we can see how we can get people to use just that.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up,
1.5 minutes
not
after
down.
7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Monday and welcome to The Situation Room. Broadcasting on Spice FM for the next 2 hours, also on KTN Home and online on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We want to take a look at politics. But before we do that, let's take a look at today's proverb.
When deeds speak, words are nothing. We have given deeds a voice here. And so when they speak, words that usually have the voice are nothing.
When deeds speak, words are nothing. Okay. What is this from?
It's a traditional African saying.
Okay.
Whenever you hear that statement, what it means is that it is a saying that you can find in almost every corner of the continent.
Right, every language, yeah.
Yes, in almost every language, there'll be an equivalent. Or should we say a near equivalent?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So let's look at this morning's discussion. And we always know this, that when you're getting into a weekend, based on how the week is ending, you can expect how the weekend is going to be politically. What kind of rhetoric you're going to see politically, what kind of then week you will start the following week with, because of what you've seen happening. So towards the end of last week, of course, we saw the whole of last week. At the beginning of the week, there was the COVID-19 conference at KICC. Then there was a talk of the Deputy President not attending. Then the following day, the Deputy President was having an event at the current official residence. And throughout the week, then we saw the Deputy President going to Jubilee House with a couple of MPs and saying, now we'll be coming here because this is our base anyway. Then we saw the Secretary General of Jubilee issuing a statement and saying, you know what we are seeing the Deputy Party Leader doing, the National Management Committee of the party has decided to recommend that he is removed from being the Deputy Party Leader. And then we saw what we saw yesterday at Kennel in Muranga County. The Deputy President was supposed to attend a church service at the AIPCA church, And then there had been some clearly organized groups of people that were there to cause drama. In the drama, 2 people died. And this is what the Standard is actually now calling this morning the pride and shame of Kenya, because it's looking at, as this was happening in London, as the Kenyan athletes were preparing to conquer London, there were other people who were preparing to conquer a small town called Kennel in Muranga. And the end of it, seeing 2 people dying, and the kind of politics that we saw, the kind of statement that we saw then coming from the Inspector General of Police, ordering for the arrest of 2 legislators from the area, is something that is basically bad. The nation says outrage as fight takes a deadly turn. The police boss orders the arrest of MPs Ndende Nyoro and Alice Wahome over violent protests that claimed the lives of 2 people ahead of the DP's visit to Muranga. The DP still attended a church service and fundraiser, and he was blaming his rivals in Jubilee, saying his State House journey is unstoppable. Now, when you look at all this, and especially when you get to a point where now we are talking about people dying, just because of a meeting that a deputy president was supposed to attend, it starts getting ugly.
Is it the first time the deputy president has been to central Kenya? No.
It's not.
Is it the first time he has attended a church meeting there? No.
Absolutely not.
Is it the first time he has had a meeting with this particular church? No.
Nope.
So, what was it about this particular meeting that required the amount of drama that we've been treated to?
It's the first time he was going to the meeting after having been declared to be ousted from the party.
So essentially what we're saying here is that a party disagreement, party squabbles have now reached the national arena.
Yes.
Via the media. Because essentially this is the same Tanga Keleweke issue playing out in Kenya. But whereas in the past there have been people lining up to greet him, are we saying that these people who caused this mayhem simply did this out of their own volition? They more or less decided that today is a day when there isn't much happening. Maybe we need to cause a little chaos. Or do you think that these are groups that were actually, the entire exercise was orchestrated?
Well, it's been speculated. I mean, the whole of yesterday, what did we hear? And what were we privy to is that it could be that it was orchestrated. Groups of people who had been rounded up to do something like this, knowing full well that the deputy president was going to be in attendance in this particular area. So it wasn't just that, people were standing about and lacked something to do. It would have been that somebody put their muscle and their money behind these groups of people to do this. It would be it's still speculation, but it wouldn't be that it was hoped or planned out that anybody would die. But to cause some mayhem, to put about some ruckus, and then just to make sure that whatever meeting then was scuttled or whatever process was scuttled, that was the intention.
To what end?
To what end? I mean, just to show that,
to drive a point home.
To drive a point home.
Which point?
That you can't just. I think one thing was clear, that you're either not, number one, not welcome here, and that the following that you would have believed that you had in this particular region actually is stuff for dreams. It doesn't really exist.
If you don't particularly like the person, then don't attend the rally or don't attend the meeting, don't attend the church service.
Why, when you can come in and throw a cat among the pigeons? Why?
You see, this is the thing.
Why stay home when you can prove a point, and even in even greater fashion? And that's what we've seen political groups do over time.
So we are saying that in this country, whenever there's political differences, the way to resolve those differences is through violence.
No, it's not the way to resolve it, and that's the thing. That's the unfortunate skewed, look that this has given. It's not the way, but it has always been the modus operandi in the past. That mayhem and drama has been the way to prove a point. I wish it were not. I wish it were the other way. But people have shown time and time again that the only way to get some kind of attention is through this, because guess what? What's happening now? Through the whole of yesterday and for the next few days, this is what is going to be discussed. It's going to be in the public light. Whether you like it or not, they're going on the principle that there is no such thing as bad publicity. People are going to be talking about it. People are going to, and if anything, it gives credence to the fact that people are politically charged to a very high degree. Even now, with them saying that and campaigns have not even really started in earnest.
Oh, they
People
have.
are politically charged, and the temperatures are very high and rising. And I do agree with those in positions of
Temperatures,
authority
in
now
my
who
opinion-
are saying you need to be very careful, because things that people are saying at the moment and the way in which people are carrying themselves, what's going to happen
Are temperatures
over the next
high
6
or are they
months?
being heightened?
Well, I would say both.
You see, I'm trying to understand how it is that a meeting, similar to other meetings that the Deputy President has had, suddenly acquires this particular characterization.
Well, like I said, it's the first time he's doing something like this after a recommendation for his ousting from the party has been done.
But those are party
Never happened
issues.
before.
What is it about this
Being
party
brought to a
issue?
national stage. Being
Why?
brought to a
What
national
is it?
stage.
What is this one thing that has changed, which wasn't there before? Because look, we had this issue, the Tanga Keleweke thing again, came into being when it was clear that the president was of one perspective and his deputy was of another. Okay? And this went on and on. And even despite all this, we didn't witness anything of this sort. What we had was mudslinging and people saying some genuinely crazy things. Okay? For the first time, we had people coming out and speaking against the president, some even insulting him outrightly. Okay? But now, this step up, this is unusual. Now, you cannot tell me that when we've had series of differences that were aired out publicly, loudly, spoken of, and suddenly we've moved from just speaking about it, and now you're seeing it's like organized groups. Remember, I'm avoiding the word groups being organized. I'm saying organized groups coming into play and sort of like fighting each other. These aren't, and then if you read the papers, it's like some people were ferried from some parts of the city, some came from God knows where else. Now, you know, this is not something that should be talked about lightly. This is something that should be, I don't know, how do you condemn something in a way that it reaches the final limits of condemning something? Because
You say you've condemned it in the strongest terms possible.
No, that one it's a cliche. That one just bounces off.
That's how you do it in this country. You just say you condemn it in the strongest terms possible, issue a statement, or call a press conference, address a press conference, distance yourself from this kind of behavior. Say that kind of behavior is not what we encourage in this country, and then we move on. Next weekend, you may have something similar.
You see, this is the problem here. It's like with war. Old men keep talking and young men dying.
Yep.
Okay? What is the quarrel? There is a difference. We understand. It's politics. People have differences. Or is it that they feel, or is there a feeling that this person is directly going against the president? But people go against the president all the time.
But so what?
Yes.
Even if the person is going against the president, so what?
Yes.
You know, Kennel has actually been a stage for similar protests and demos. They have not been this violent, but they have been demos. Demos against the vice president, the deputy president, demos against the way certain leaders within Mount Kenya region are aligning themselves. Demos, it's not the first time. But the fact that it gets to a point where it's violent, the fact that it still gets to a point where leaders will stand up and speak in church and use the kind of language that they were using in a church, condemning this, condemning the other, and saying we are going nowhere, this is our area. I mean, this is... I did not see a point where, so let's assume that the Tanga side was actually ambushed in this. They had planned, they had been invited to, the deputy president had been invited to attend a church service at Kennel, and, he had accepted, and leaders who were allied to him had said, all right, we're going to accompany you to the church service. And so they were ambushed then by this kind of violence that was happening. Okay. And then you're really, really annoyed. Okay. But knowing the fact that people have died, knowing the fact that people have been injured in the fracas that ensued, should it be not a point where then you stand up and say, all right, guys,
Calm down.
calm down. This is wrong, but we are not going to behave the way they expected us to behave. This is not how we're going to conduct ourselves today. We are coming to attend a church service. We are going to talk to our people, and this is all we're going to do. And we are going to be the ones that show what peace means. Did we see that? We didn't see that. Then this other side that is being accused, and they're vehemently denying that they did not participate in this. They were not involved in causing this fracas. They're not coming out to say, you know what, people, okay, whatever the case, let's promote peace. No. It's a condemnation, in the strongest terms. It's what we are used to seeing politicians doing in this country. Tutakanyangana, tutavurugana, what is the other? Tutakushughulikia. This is the kind of language that our political leaders have basically assumed this is the way we deal with one another. Because I have political differences with CT Muga, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to use the worst, the most unpalatable words possible. I'm going to go all out and even find a way of mudslinging him, not just mudslinging at rhetoric, but going and creating mud and slinging at CT Muga.
Very true.
Physically. This is what we have allowed our political leaders to do. And yet we sit back and say, oh, you know, these two people did not have, these two people who died have absolutely no benefit that they were going to get from this meeting. Maybe some cash handout, maybe some recognition here or there in terms of, hey, jana mlifanya kazi mzuri, and that's it. But people have died. And we allow our political leaders to do this all the time. And then we sit back and say, hey, but now things are really, temperatures are right. No. Something ought to be done to stop the politicians from behaving as if this is their country and that we are visitors to this country of theirs. No.
You know, Eric, what I find particularly strange and what I find alarming, and, well, I was going to say disturbing, but alarming is actually more serious than disturbing, is that, like other things that we've allowed to become the norm, we've allowed this violence to become the norm, and it shouldn't be. And every time the security forces have acted, remember that they have not been given peace. No. Why are they doing this? Again, it's our people are being targeted. But you are doing something wrong. How on earth? The deputy president going to a place he should be allowed to go. He should go. It is his right as a Kenyan. Mm-hmm. By the same token, those who differ with him have a right to differ with him. But nobody has a right to go around killing people and causing this sort of mayhem.
Nobody has a right to even, what do we want to look at? People have been jailed for things like, because if you want to be honest, organized crime, whereby you're getting people to come together to form groups, right? You form groups that now perpetuate violence. At the end of the day, that is what it is. And I do agree. We got into a point where people are allowing this thing to go on. Security agencies are talking about the fact that, okay, please be careful. Do you know how easy it is to spiral into a situation that will be uncontrollable? This country has seen it before. And I'm not going to be the one to sit and say, okay, well, you know what, let's be careful. Let's not call it a lot more than it is. But that's how it starts. It just takes a spark to get a fire going. That's all you need. You just need a little bit of fire. So you can imagine those now who are in this situation, or even those who are watching and saying, okay, next time is going to be an opportunity to fight back. Next time will be our opportunity to have our voices heard. Whereby you realize that you're just being used as pawns in this whole thing, because they know that politicians or leaders who know that they need crowds to push the particular agenda know that you just need people to be a little bit pissed off. That's all. And if you sit down and ask them the question about why they're really angry or why they're really upset or what the quarrel really is about, they may not actually be able to answer.
You know, the thing that I actually find, the thing that stops me and makes me rethink about just the levels of alarm that should actually go off when this thing happens is, remember, these are young people. We are not coming up with a plan as to how these people can be engaged well, how they can be engaged productively. But this is what politicians do. They will engage young people, take advantage of their youth, take advantage of their energy and their strength in activities that definitely will get them into trouble. Activities that once you start is more likely to generate more of the same. And if you're not careful, what has happened to these two people, the numbers could go up. It's not just a question of two other people, because next time it won't be people throwing stones. No. Did I say stoning throws? Okay.
Even that, it could escalate to something like that too.
It could escalate to that throwing that thing which I said.
Yes.
Now, this is in one part of the country. So what message are you sending to the rest of the country? This is where the security services need to actually manage this thing and show that they're not going to tolerate this thing in any way. Because if you tolerate it, it means next time somebody comes around and starts telling people this is what they ought to do, they will do it.
But that's where I have a problem, City. I have a problem because our state agencies have behaved as if this is normal. Because our state agencies are controlled by political leaders. And it has gone to a point where it is normal. Barely 12 years ago, we were at this particular point where we were going into a civil war, right?
Yes, we were.
And it was because of political reasons, political differences. When the Waki Commission investigated this, they found that it was not as spontaneous as they were claiming. There had been a build-up, and a build-up was, words and deeds by political leaders.
Not only, and marshalling people,
Marshalling
getting them into
what
groups.
they were doing.
It was organized.
This was all contained in the CPEV report by Justice Waki and his team. We know it. After the 2008 handshake between President Kibaki and Raila, there was the formation of the Agenda 4 commissions. One of them was the NCIC. How do we move forward and ensure that we don't get to this point again? How do we build cohesion? How do we ensure that there is integration of the people of Kenya and living together? We have an NCIC that is still working up to date. And we even spoke to one of the commissioners a couple of weeks back, and he was giving us the frustration. So yes, when it comes to, bringing peace and harmony among communities, there are those where we are able to, because politicians have not been able to take advantage of it and fund it. But when it gets to political level, you take someone to court because of hate speech and that's it. Nobody will come and testify against them, so you don't have a solid case. Look at police officers. So is this the first time that we are seeing police inspector general ordering the arrest of some political leaders because of what they consider insightful statements? But then what happens? So yeah, today you're going to arrest Ali Twahome and Dinyoro. Then
Our people are being targeted. Is there really an inherent hatred amongst people in this country? Is it really true?
No.
It isn't. I
So
honestly believe that it is not true.
It's not true.
I don't think that people hate each other, one community to another. I don't think so. I do, however, think that it is very easy to rile up these emotions in the minds of people to think that that may be the case. Because look at it. Look at these groups that we saw yesterday and look at those who are watching from the periphery. If you throw that in there and say, now they're targeting our people because of 1, 2, 3, it's very easy for people's minds to get to that thinking that, okay, maybe something is actually being done. And that kind of feeling then mushrooms and spreads, unfortunately. And there are a lot of people who might believe that politicians are not clever, but they actually are, because they know that this is a catalyst. It's cataclysmic in nature, because what it does is that it takes and it throws into the minds of people that this is not a fight about what should be done in the country, but this is a fight about who hates who from communities and who doesn't want a particular community to rule. They know this. And I'm saying that it's time that the people have a heightened awareness of the fact that this is being used to the detriment of the people.
Actually, people know that. But
They know that they're being used
Yes,
over and
they
over
do.
again,
Yes, they
but
do.
still
They
they
do.
decide to go and congregate in an area
Let
like
me
this
ask you.
at the behest of people they've just called them. They've just called them. That's all they've done.
Let me ask
They've
you.
not played with their mentality. They've played with their mentality to the point where they come out on a Sunday
Let me
and
ask
and
you.
they know that they're being used, but still go ahead and
Yes,
do it.
yes, they do. Ask yourself,
To what end?
when you're talking to young people, youthful people, the mixture, the entire mixture of people who've had some education, gone to colleges, gone to university, don't have jobs, you tell me, do you know what the mindset of such a person is? That person doesn't have hope, because you are trained, you're supposed to get a job. That job isn't and has not been forthcoming for years. Before it was 1 year. It's 5 years you haven't gotten a job since you qualified. 6 years. You're at home. Your family sacrificed so that this education would hopefully get you a job so that you could help uplift the economic status of your family. That has not been possible. And these people are many in the country. There are very many. Now, you want to tell them that there's an opportunity for them to make 1,000 shillings. 1,000 is a lot of money. And all they have to do is throw a few stones, walk around and do. Of course, they're going to accept it. Why? Because in the past, they may have seen such a thing. They may have even gotten 500, even 200, but that is money they didn't have. The order of reality that this group of people live in this country is very different from those of us here who have a job. It's very different.
yeah.
So because of that, they're easy to take advantage of.
Very unfortunate. Let's hear what the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, said yesterday, after what we saw happening in Kandara constituency in the morning. And then we take a break. This is a Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online. We'll be back shortly after we take a look at the weather and traffic. Good morning.
As NCIC, we wanted to say that the NCIC will not stop at anything that would lead to the loss of life of Kenyans, or would incite Kenyans to fight against one another, irrespective of any reasons for that.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
In Nairobi, partly cloudy conditions at 15. We'll go to highs of 27 today. It's going to be a warm day in Nairobi, and the lows will be at 13. Nyeri is partly cloudy at 14 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 13. Nakuru is sunny this morning at 14. It'll be rainy afternoon though, highs of 25 and lows of 12. Eldoret is sunny at 13 degrees, going to highs of 22 and lows of 12, with thunderstorms expected in the afternoon. Kisumu is sunny at 19 degrees, going to highs of 29 with a chance of rains later and lows of 19. Kakamega sunny at 17 degrees, and it'll be wet in the afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 14. Partly cloudy conditions in Mombasa at 25 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24 with a chance of rain later. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 26, going to highs of 29 and lows of 25. Partly cloudy in Kampala at 19 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18. It'll be a wet afternoon. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny at 24 degrees. It'll be warm there today, going to highs of 32 and lows of 22. Joburg continues to warm up, going now to 16. Cloudy conditions, however, and the rains are going to cool it down later with highs of 24 and coming down to lows of 13. The thunderstorms continue in Lagos, still at 31 degrees. That'll be the high for the day, coming down to lows of 23. But the rain is going to continue well into Wednesday from all that we see.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
Okay, it's cleared at the underpass, and this is on Thika Road today. Not too much. There was an accident that happened earlier on, but that has been sorted out, and so the traffic can continue moving. It slowed down just a tad, but it will be fine now going forward. From what we see, Thika Road is behaving splendidly today. Okay, on Mombasa Road, however, on the other side of things, it's not so clear. Bumper to bumper traffic all the way from Mlolongo, and then this is going all the way through just before General Motors. After that, though, you're fine. Still clogged up all the way to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout after Bellevue, and then through into the CBD from Nyayo Stadium through to Westlands. Getting into the CBD, though, not too painful. Coming down Valley Road, as you've then either joined from Arwings Quebec or you've joined from the Bagavi Way or Gong Road, you should be fine. Okay? All right. Text us on 40127, that's our SMS line, or tweet us, Spice FM KE.
At 29 minutes after 7, this conversation continues right here on Spice FM and KTN Home and online on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We are talking about the political violence that was witnessed yesterday at Kennel in Muranga County. And, you know, the whole issue of why we see politicians sitting back and seeming to enjoy. So let's even assume, let's give them the benefit of the doubt as they claim that, because no side is claiming that they organized this, okay? So let's even
Have
say,
they ever?
Expect that.
so let's even say that the devil
Did.
organized this particular meeting. But it worked well for politicians, and politicians did not really stop it. So why is it that politicians would continue to take advantage of such violence for their own political gains? And how can we get to a point where we are able to fully stop this? And I was saying, I have the frustration with state agencies. The Inspector General of Police issues a statement and says, what has happened is bad. We urge political leaders to watch out what they say, how they conduct themselves, because this violence could turn out bad for the country. And I'm ordering the arrest of these 2 political leaders. To what end? How do we get to a point where it's very clear that even if you contemplate organizing such kind of violence, you know what will happen to you? How can we get to that point?
As you correctly put it earlier on, Eric, the executive and parliament are not really that divorced in this country. And by that I mean the individuals who are in parliament and the individuals who are in the executive. They're not really that divorced. It's, for the longest time, it was like just one unit.
Yeah.
One was the extension of the other. And if that is the case, then it means the arms of government will be extension of these very same people. And that hasn't gone away. Remember, this is a Jubilee issue we're talking about. We're discussing a Jubilee issue here. And Jubilee are the ones in power. Okay? So whenever there is a quarrel, these are people who at some point got along swimmingly. They fought together, worked together, and they had one common enemy. Now, something unusual happened. The enemy had a handshake. Okay? So the water was muddied and continued to be muddied. But the fight that they had among themselves has just simply been escalated. Every once in a while, the so-called person who was in the opposition keeps being brought into the discussion. Like now, there are those who are saying that they're pointing fingers at people who are in the executive and saying, so-and-so, who's in the executive, so-and-so are the ones who are actually behind the chaos. The finger pointing is not new. The accusation and counter-accusations, not new. What we haven't seen is exercising the full force of the law in such cases. We haven't seen.
I don't think it needs to, and that's the thing, to ask the question, and in terms of what needs to be done by state agencies, I don't think it needs to be a suggestion. I think this thing, it needs to jump in feet first in the deep end and say, look, we have people, because it's just been, okay, well, if you incite people, if you say things, then perhaps we need to have a chat with you. No. If you're going to incite people to be violent for your own political expediency, then there will be consequences. Clear, black, white. That's the way it should be. It shouldn't suggest that perhaps we don't like it so much if you do something like that. No.
This is the same parliament who knew and categorically stated that they knew they could not be dissolved. They knew. How far do you expect impunity to go before you see that there is a full-grown impunity running around naked for you to see? These people don't care because they believe nothing will happen.
And that's what I'm saying. It needs to be that something definite will happen to you if you incite. Look at what we're looking at now.
Happening,
Absolutely. Look at what we're looking at now with the case of Felicien Kabuga. Kabuga did not actually pick up a machete and kill anybody.
No.
He didn't. However, he fueled for this to happen. And he facilitated this over and over and over again. One of the women, by the way, one of the few generals that was charged with cases of rape in Rwanda was a woman. She didn't actually rape anybody, but she facilitated for this. She had put it in the minds of people that this is what needed to be done in order for them to gain in one way or another in the war. So what are we looking at? How easy it is to step over that threshold. And if you don't nip it in the bud, if you don't do something about it before it gets way out of hand, there's going to be a major problem. And it's not about raising the alarm and getting people to be scared, because the truth is, that is what you will deal with. You'll be surprised at the lengths at which politicians will go to gain any kind of political expediency. They will do things which you talk about them being unpalatable now. They'll do it and blink and go home and have a good night's sleep. And you are the ones who are sitting here saying, all right, there's some kind of fear. I don't care. And I'm saying, unless something is done, until there is a threat at their own comfortability, this thing will not stop. It won't. They're going to keep using it and using it because, like we say, a child grows every day. They'll have this violence today. There's a step they will make. There's a step forward they will make in terms of their own race. And people will continue to suffer. They'll do it again tomorrow. Another
They
step
disrupted
forward.
business. I mean, you can imagine somebody who got up in the morning and they were going, they go to Kennel in the morning to sell their wares along the road.
To conduct business.
This was disrupted
Didn't happen
completely.
yesterday.
only because some politicians were settling a score
And
amongst
Sundays
themselves.
are good days for
It's a
business.
very good day for business, especially
Yes.
those people who sell by the roadside at Kennel. They make good money. Now, this was all disrupted. Why? Because politicians, and I'm sure later in the evening they were calling one another, or even if they're not speaking to one another, they're saying, today we've shown them. Both sides. Because we must assume that there are both sides here. There's a side that is accusing another, and there's a side that's refusing to be
Eric,
accused.
there's no one who's
that
innocent
means there
in
are
this.
two sides.
No.
There's no one is innocent here.
There's no one who's
No.
innocent here at all.
No.
There really isn't.
And we continue to see this happening, and there will be very many people who will be apologists and they'll come and try and explain, but you see there's a right, there's freedom of expression. You see there was this, let's blame it on these state agencies that were trying to stop duly elected leaders from meeting with their people. What? And then we have a commission that has been making money and is being facilitated by states to ensure there is cohesion in the country.
Who are also just making suggestions.
And all they do is they come out and they make a statement.
They don't make suggestions.
And-
They hint.
Listen to what the NCIC chairman again said when it comes to issues of hate speech. This is Dr. Samuel Kobie, the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission.
As the NCIC, we are very, very concerned about the political temperature in the country that has been rising up in the last so many weeks. We have been monitoring very closely hate speech, and we have taken action and have arrested those who have made utterances that equal to hate speech and incitement.
What do you make of that statement? What has he said?
Eric, look, the response to your question is simply this. When we are talking about making changes, the way you make the changes that last is through legislation. Okay? If there's deficiency in our laws as to what you do with such people, then should not these leaders have ensured that we have sufficient legislator that empowers the state organs who deal with security to ensure that when such a thing happens, you know exactly what to do, and we the citizenry know this is what we expect. But if those in charge of legislation are the ones who forget going around the issue, even things which are mandatory like the 2/3 gender rule, they simply ignore, not avoid, ignore. You really think they are going to come up with rules and regulations
On
and
their
laws
own?
on their own
To
which
punish
will-
themselves?
Never.
It's like the parent who tells the child, what punishment do you think you deserve for not obeying my rules? What do you think the child is going to pick? Do you think they're actually going to be in a position where they say, actually, you know what?
They can tell you.
If I incite people, I actually should be locked up.
Or I shouldn't. The punishment I want is I won't watch TV for a day.
Yeah.
That's
So you
supposed to
can
be a
ground me
punishment.
for a month. Don't allow
That-
me to walk about for the next 7 days.
That's a
What are you talking
punishment.
about? They're going to slap themselves on the wrist and then stand up the next day and then continue. Doesn't make sense.
So how do we get ourselves out of this rut? Because we are clearly stuck in a rut.
From where we sit, it's something we need to talk about unceasingly, because really that's what we need to do. And sometimes we need to border the things we say on the very thing we are speaking against, incitement. Because if you speak a little too strongly, you will be accused of inciting also.
Yeah.
Yes. But unfortunately, this is not a matter that one needs to be afraid of. You need to actually say it. Look, some people need to be arrested, and we need to see them going to jail. Because what is starting as something mild, people are going to lose lives in the days to come.
People have lost
and
lives.
people who don't need to lose their lives.
Yeah.
Businesses are going to be harmed. Problems are going to occur because some people think that the only way to get the attention of the people they're fighting with is to incite violence. And the people who are going to be fighting are people who are probably known to each other, people who have no quarrel with each other, but simply because they've been told you're on this side or you've been paid to do this. So what we're doing is We have decided that what we're going to do with our youth is to get them into little gangs who simply pray and fight other young people like themselves and if possible kill them. That is the future that we want to chart for the young people of this country. And our politicians are showing us the way and telling us this is the path that we see as a profitable path for young people to follow. Get them into gangs. When there's a political issue, we gear them into solving this problem by fighting each other and probably killing each other. So that is a solution that politicians have seen to be the possible solution for unemployment in this country for young people.
The same youth upon which the responsibility of building the nation in the future has already been placed.
Yes.
The same youth.
This same youth.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a plan to ensure that many young people get injured or killed and get into this mindset where differences are sorted out by fighting each other physically and harming them. And this is what the politicians want us to absorb and say, this is the norm. And this is the path that we are charting for our youth. Because they seem obviously deficient in finding a way to actually engage them purposefully.
And you're going to get a number of politicians who will come out and say, but we actually don't advocate for this. We don't believe that this is the way to go. And I would say, the moment you are silent,
you're advocating for
you're
it.
advocating for it. The
Loudly
moment that you see something like this happening and that you sit back and say, okay, well, because it wasn't me, doesn't mean that it means that I'm actually not involved. Oh, yes, it does. Because if you're in that position where you could do something about it and you don't, you're basically saying that it is all right to be used as a form or as a tool to put yourself forward as a political leader in this country. It cannot be silenced. It cannot be kept quiet about anymore because, like I keep saying, there is a very thin line. There was a very thin line. If you look at countries around the world is replete with examples. It took something very simple. That tinder that was blown, it took a very simple thing to tip people over the edge. And we're dancing and doing this dalliance with it like it really doesn't matter. It matters. And I do say that the security agencies, it cannot just be a whiff. Put the thing in your mouth and smoke it and say that smoke this thing out. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. Don't just be here saying, oh, there seems to be a waft in the air. No, get it out. Because if you don't deal with it now, it's going to grow into a full-blown thing and you're not going to be able to deal with it. And then you're going to be saying, I wish.
And then we have our churches. I would expect they should have come out flaying, hands flying, fighting this thing from the very, very onset. Because these people who are fighting, these are members of churches.
Yes.
These are part of the congregation, part of the society. You will hear churches talk about it towards the end of next week when 10 other things have happened. Mm-hmm. Now, and then you wonder and you ask, where did our churches lose the moral authority? They're losing it incrementally day by day by day by day because their churchism is not relevant. If your voice isn't relevant in situations where it's needed, what do you think when do you think it's going to be relevant? Mm-hmm. When you choose that it's relevant or on a Sunday or when you have a special function? It has to be relevant in the things that matter in the lives of the people on a daily basis. Then it's relevant. Then you can provide the guidance that you're supposed to provide. Then you can be the moral compass that people need in the country. But right now, the moral compass seems to our politicians.
Let's open up this conversation to our audience and ask, how can we send a strong and clear message to our political leaders that enough is enough? We are not going to tolerate violence, especially in the lead up to the 2020 general election. We cannot allow such kind of things that we saw yesterday happening in Muranga happen in other parts of the country or happen ever again. How do we send that strong message? Already we're seeing a number of comments coming in on social media, and if you can sample some.
According to Mutenda, the only way for the security system to stop is to stop siding. I believe we have one of the best intelligence and makes one ask if the police never got word of the planned skirmish. They should have known. A people get the leaders they deserve, according to Shege. The ugly truth is Kenyans thrive on this political shenanigans, and so our so-called leaders know that. The day we actually realize that we are being used by politricans, he said. Daniel says, when people are too poor to live humanely and suddenly a savior surfaces, they will fight anybody who seems to block the Messiah from reaching them.
Phone lines are open, 0719-012-600, that's 0719-012-600, or SMS number 40127, that's 40127. How is it that we can send a strong message to our political class that enough is enough with this kind of politically instigated violence? You see it happening all the time, so leaders will come, and because somebody is being made to believe that they are protecting their political leader, then they end up fighting, 2 people yesterday died. They did not have to die. They did not need to die yesterday. There are other people whose businesses were affected yesterday in Kano. Those people did not have to go through what they went through.
No.
And what is it that we've seen happen? The only thing that we see happen is at the end of the day, late in the night, the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, issues a statement with instructions that certain political leaders should be arrested.
And then?
The IG of police is telling the public that certain political leaders should be arrested. Who's arresting them? Is that not
Who's
the job of
actually
the
making
police?
the arrest? Exactly.
You should be telling us that so-and-so has already been arrested. If indeed it was
And we're
about
moving forward in
Yes.
this manner.
saying that so-and-so should be arrested. We have seen this happen so many times. It's not the first time that MP Ndende Nyoro has, for example, been arrested by police officers. And then what has happened after that?
It's like, oh.
Nothing. What is it that has happened to the other political leaders? And then just like Mutenda is saying, don't take sides. If your intelligence is showing you exactly who organized these particular skirmishes of yesterday, why don't you go for the people who organized it and say, we've got enough evidence to show that you participated in planning for what ended up to be the death of 2 people? Let's hear from Eric calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good. I listened to the news when I was very angry about the politician for the first time. So, 2 people just died like that.
Yeah.
I think the Jubilee government refused to give youth jobs. Youth like us jobs. They refused to create for us the job that they promised. So what they do, they use the same youth they use them for the political reason. I think for me, the only thing we need here, we need jobs. Youths need jobs because, for example, if most people are engaged in their jobs, there's no way somebody can play with their mind to throw stones.
So if people were busy...
And the reason why we normally throw stones is because somebody's offering you 1,000 bob for just throwing a stone. You're idle, and then somebody's offering 1,000 bob for throwing a stone. I think we need jobs, and then all these things will not happen. Thank you.
Asante sana. But also, even without the jobs, I would say that it doesn't matter whether people have jobs or not. In terms of going to incite them, you should not incite them simply because they don't have a job. Yes, you should focus on doing your job, which is to have that conducive environment that then creates jobs for the economy. But using them, somebody saying, Eric Mwangi is saying, we as Kenyans should refuse to fight. If not, then tuendelee kufa bure.
But that's what we need to look at. That is what is going to happen. That is what will happen. It shouldn't be that people should be used to incite people and then that is let to go for free. It should be that political leaders should understand the consequences of this, whereby it has been accepted for the longest time possible that is a tool that they can use, and they know. But that it should be nipped at that point to say, look, it's gone on for long enough. Even if the people are not going to listen to you anymore, there should be...
is no longer available.
It should be repercussions. There should be.
Eddie in Kilifi, good morning.
How are you, sir? A very good morning, my brother.
Good morning to you too.
This is Engineer Comrade Eddie Banda calling from Kilifi County.
Right.
First of all, I'm very impressed with the good discussion you are putting to the entire country. And I was taking breakfast once I'd opened the Spice TV. It had touched me, and I would like to contribute only 2 points.
Yes, go ahead.
This country belongs to us, and this country is bigger than anybody. And we are the one who can make this country, and we are the one who can destroy this country. It is high time we should change our attitude, especially in the way we politicize our politics, at the same time in the way we live. Kenyans are very good people. We have been given a wonderful country. The only thing that we are not being blessed with are leaders in the political divide.
Yeah.
So what we can do, let's take the opportunity to look where we might have gone wrong and come to God so that we pray that God help this country, because the way the country is going, we have totally lost direction.
Asante
The
sana,
way
Eddie.
and I'm not wrong to say that. What happened yesterday, I'm very sorry, it was a Sunday. We should not, this is the time where we should go to church and pray for the country. At the same time, what advanced us in this epidemic of coronavirus, COVID-19.
Thank you very much.
Not organize going to church
Yeah.
to go and play politics and organize good to make some people lose their properties, lose their lives. And two people lost their lives, some are in a coma.
Yeah, not good. Thank you very much, Eddie. Let's hear from Ed Gitonga in Nyeri. Good morning.
Morning to you.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. Kenyans need to stop being cheap. And when I say cheap, it's not about even monetary. I mean even being cheap in the mind. Because I'm going to tell you this truth, Eric. Before a political rally is planned, guys on the ground, they usually know that so-and-so is coming, so-and-so is coming. So I'm even hearing you guys say the police need to do investigations. They don't need to go so far. They already, people on the ground usually know so-and-so is coming, so-and-so is coming, and we are expecting this much. And I can tell you this. You saw what happened in Muranga, right?
Yep.
I can tell you this, and this one is the truth, that it can happen again even today at another part of the country, because people don't learn. People don't learn. You know, and actually you would think that Kenya, a country that underwent political scourge in 2007, you would think that people learned. But people didn't learn. Actually, Eric, in the industry that I work in the matatu industry, and people talk, we travel, and we usually go to places, and some people, you hear someone commenting wide, and they say, you know what, 2022 kitaumana, tukikosa kufanya hivi kitaumana. So actually, this is just a trailer of what the mindset that people have already.
Thank you, Ed.
Yes, have a good day.
You too. Let's hear from Sami in Magarini, Malindi. Good morning, Sami.
Yes, good morning, Eric.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks. How is everybody else?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Yes. I'm actually embarrassed by the way the politicians are conducting themselves. Last time we had the same place, Muranga, when with the governor, Mwango area. Now we're having another story. And we're hearing Inspector General saying that they are looking after Alice Wahome and Bindi Nyoro. When we know actually those there are people who actually organize this faction. Actually, I mentioned about Sabina Chege and I don't know who. Why don't they go for Sabina Chege and the other fellow? Why are they going after the Wahome, who are actually the organizers of this function? I think the government actually should stop blackmailing us by saying us that they don't know who actually organized this function. In fact, some of the boys who are caught actually declared that they were promised they would be given 1,000 each, and unfortunately they were not even given. And some of the people, 2 people lost their lives. Why double standard?
So don't be double standard. Just arrest everybody who you think is involved. Asante sana, Sami, calling in from Magarini. Clinton says on Twitter, my dad once told me that these politicians are sacrificing Kenyans. I believe him now. It's about sacrifices here. And Robert Kikumboy says, such as political scripts being acted by crooked politicians out to earn sympathy from the audience.
I really wish there wasn't also talking out of both sides of the mouth. I remember last year where we had one politician who was very vocal to an extent about, what many people then would call xenophobia at that point, when he was asking for Tanzanians and the Chinese basically to get out of the country. And, he was called in for questioning, and an issue for his arrest was given. So what would be the difference here? Why wouldn't you see such a labored effort on the side of security agencies to do something about this? Because it seems that if violence is the language that you understand, then find a way to stop this violence. And I think that's one thing, stopgap measure that would work with immediacy. Because if somebody knows that, okay, if I go this way, they're going to do something to stop my movements, either of my legs or my mouth, right? So I wouldn't want to go that way at all. So why can't the same be now used across board?
Remember, when you talk about political violence, it's never in a vacuum in this country. And we are at a problematic point here because it doesn't matter which way we turn, 2022 is never far from the conversation.
Yeah.
And so when you talk of 2022, then you're going to bring in all sorts of players. And some of these players may still be in government. And it will be alleged that these people are the ones who want some positions of authority within the political sphere. And because they're in government, they have the power to do certain things. So this conversation keeps getting muddied both ways. The thing that is a constant is that it is young people who are used to cause these problems, and it is young people who end up being injured, and it's young people who end up dying. That is the bottom line. That's the constant.
It's an unfortunate bit. It's unfortunate. At 5 minutes to 8 o'clock, let's take a break now on Spice FM on KTN Home. We'll be back shortly, continuing the conversations. These conversations take place every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM. In Nairobi, 94.4. We are in Mombasa, we are in Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, and we broadcast to the world on www.spicefm.co.ke.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Victor says it's a time we need to change our mindsets. Jobs alone will not help. Jobs alone will not be the solution. Well, Dredrick Kipto says, once again, I don't really blame whoever sponsored this violence, but the persons being used, how can you be paid to go and die just for 1,000 shillings?
No, the agenda isn't death, actually. The agenda is drama. One doesn't think this thing through. I mean, what you ask is fairly simple. Throw stones, prevent this one, give some people a thorough beating. And you know you're not alone.
You're many.
You're many of you. So there's that false security because of the numbers. And then there's a promise of money. There are cases where you're even given a deposit. You're told, okay, here's an advance payment. The balance is when we see evidence of the work that we wanted you to do. So they're motivated. Remember, these aren't people who see that sort of money on a daily basis. They don't. Even a fraction of it. So that money is important. Now, you may think, 1,000 shillings. 1,000 shillings in certain parts is a lot of money.
Yep.
It's a lot of money.
Yep.
There are people in this country who earn 2,000 shillings a month. So someone wants to pay you 1,000 shillings for a day. No.
Abu Jamal Dennis says, God blessed Kenya with resources and left Kenyans to choose their leaders. God does not involve himself in a man's civil decisions. That's why Kenyans continuously elect people who suit their cheap interests. The whistle has been blown. The battlefield will be muddy. The vibe here is, just seeing, okay, so clearly 2022 is going to be a rough one, a tough one. More and more incidences of violence are going to be witnessed. More and more people are likely to die. And that's it. We just accept that as it is.
People don't seem to understand how it is. A sense of hopelessness builds into the mind and how that mind progresses. Someone who doesn't, on a daily basis, consider the next day as a day full of hope, what do you think their reasoning is going to be when it comes to... They will look for the darkest, dreariest possibility, and that's what they'll feel, this is what's going to happen. You know why? Because their lives reflect that on a daily basis.
Yeah, so even if I do die, what's better? Is that not better than essentially what I'm going through here? I can understand that mindset. My problem is that there are politicians who prey on that mindset and use it for their own gain. And I'm at that point, that should be stopped.
That politicians do that should be stopped.
Yes.
That politicians think the way they think. They've been allowed to think that way. And it isn't this. Look at the many things that they have done. From giving themselves perks, from doing the... You just look at all that.
Yeah.
It's the same thinking that lends itself to this.
Yeah.
Same thinking. Impunity.
It's impunity.
Yes.
It's complete impunity. And it's about time that we took over from politicians. We better better make them realize that, just like we said earlier, this is not their country and we are visitors. No. Absolutely not. They are our servants in this country. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Mombasa Road is serving some people some lessons in patience this morning, because that's what you're going to need to get through this traffic. Absolutely crazy, and this is all the way through and through, guys. So traffic on Mombasa Road, not so much on Thika Road this morning, behaving very well, so you shouldn't have a problem getting into the CBD via Thika Road. There was a bit of an accident earlier on, and that has been taken care of. Langata Road also, bumper to bumper traffic this morning. The bypass, though, is open, ready for use, southern and eastern. Not many problems there. All right. Looking outside of the city, it looks good in Nakuru, and traffic is flowing very well in Kisumu, as it is in Mombasa this morning, from all reports that we've gotten so far. If you are stuck somewhere, however, do let us know on 40127. Send us a text on that line, or tweet us on Spice FM KE. If you're stuck somewhere, we might be able to find an alternate, or if you find an alternate, you might be able to share that with other folks.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
we keep
day.
talking about the state of impunity in the country, and this is one word that has become a buzzword: impunity, corruption, graft, scandal, scam. Some of those words that are just, part of our Kenyanese. It's part of our everyday speech. Has no more meaning as saying "what's up," VP, mambo,
Impunity.
Well,
scam.
It's interesting, but what has also accompanied that impunity is the manner in which the public also treats that impunity. We have normalized it. We may think we do not promote it, but we do, because we've accepted it. You actually believe that this is what should happen. If you listen to our conversations, violence in politics is considered normal. Bribery in politics is considered normal. Politicians breaking the law, it's considered normal. And why? Well, we've seen senior members of our society simply disregarding court rulings, disregarding completely. This is what the court has said. It's like the court was speaking to itself. So, it looks like what we consider to be normal in this country, in many cases, simply go against the law. And so you wonder, so those who are supposed to uphold the law, what do they have to say about this? Because clearly, they have a say, and it's something they should do. But since nothing is being done, what we see progressing is that we are getting to be more and more lawless. And we are considering the lawlessness as the norm. Ndu at the beginning of our conversation today was talking about the accidents that were witnessed on Mombasa Road alone. I'm sure in the course of the week we're going to hear many, many stories.
Yeah.
You'll even hear of people who have indulged and as a result are in hospital.
Yep.
You'll probably even hear of even more dire cases. Now, in all these conversations, the one thing that has been forgotten is COVID. And we've forgotten that the lockdown was because we had an enemy called COVID that wasn't going anywhere. Now, with our activities, what we've gone and done, if you look at the political rallies, the meetings, the political activities, it's like we've gone and said COVID doesn't exist. No, you'll be told, but no one has said so. Yes, but Our actions are clearly indicating that the last thing we are concerned about is COVID. Last thing. We are not concerned about social distancing. We are not concerned about wearing face masks. We're actually not. It's not an issue at all.
It's all about, so impunity is not just with the leaders. Impunity is with all of us. Because if you look at social media of reports on road accidents and all over the weekend, just like you were saying, Ndu, people are reporting heavy traffic jams and accidents all over Eastern Bypass, Southern Bypass, Wayakiwe, Langata Road, Thika Road, the first weekend of the month, first weekend after curfew was lifted. This was the vibe throughout the weekend.
Yep.
The number of people who are in clubs, even DJs posting and saying, we have gotten to a point, it's 11 o'clock, we have switched off the music, and then people started singing. They decided they were going to be the ones who are the source of music. And they said, you DJ, it's okay, you go home. Us guys are going to start singing. And it's, and it's like everybody's just kawaida, it's normal for them. And yet they'll come out and start talking about impunity by our political leaders.
Precisely. And how many people do you think were on the road after 11?
Many.
Precisely. And then they'll say the police are harassing them. And yet, it's a requirement. You're actually not supposed to be on the road at all. Unless there's some emergency that's made. But they're on the road. You'll find them at midnight, at 1.
And for a lot of people, it's a laughing matter.
And then people imagine, when you talk about leadership, you think that this leadership is a joke. Where do you think they get the cue from? Yes.
Yeah, because you also say you think it's a laughing matter. People are going to give each other high fives and slap each other on the back and say, we did that one, didn't we? We're supposed to be there by 11, but we made it by the skin of our teeth at 2 o'clock, and it's a funny thing, right?
Yes.
Let's do it again next weekend. So people are looking at you and they're thinking, okay, so when you steal billions, what's the difference? Somebody who is in that leadership position and steal billions and gives his buddy a high five and says, we got away with that one, 2 billion. Let's try 4 billion next time. What's the difference?
It's a national mantra.
There's no difference.
National ethos. And we think. Now, again, what accompanies it is the blame. We know who to blame.
You very well know how to point a finger.
Yes, this log in our eye, we don't see.
No.
The speck in everybody else's eye, we see. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. And you're doing exactly the same thing in your own sphere.
If it was a political leader who was, for example, involved in an accident after 11 p.m., the vibe would just be on that one political leader. What was he doing?
Social
media would have been
Look at how
alive.
He's behaving. And yet these are the kind of leaders that we have. Oh, this person, we expected them to be the future leader of this country. Now look at how they're behaving. And yet, very many pictures and video clips have circulated on social media showing people behaving badly over the weekend, past curfew hours.
And they are not politicians.
They're not politicians.
They're not in any so-called public leadership position.
Nobody else now comes up and says, oh no, I condemn this. You will hear people giving their own stories and saying, you know what, hey, this guy was so drunk, man. I had to follow, and he refused to leave his car because we had tried to call for him a taxi. He refused and he said, I'm going to drive home. So we had to follow him in our car, and he was really driving in the middle of the road. That's the most you will do. You're not going to sit that person down and slap him like 4 times and tell him, look, Sele, you are getting into this cab and going home. But you'll be like, okay, Sasakama, if you really insisted on, then let's just drive behind him. Driving behind a drunk driver does not help that driver. That does help that drunk driver at all.
When this law was in place, I know there were certain establishments that had their taxi ranks, but they also had a service. Someone, you simply, like you pay for the taxi, but you say, get in your car, someone drives you. The taxi follows, up to your home, parks your car, gets in the taxi, comes back. They had that service because they knew. Now, when there's such an understanding, and there are people who I know would be told, my friend, you are getting into that car and somebody's driving your car. Otherwise, we're taking your key, and that's the end of that story. But the insidious nature of impunity is such that you do not see it in yourself. You see it in other people. And you see it with such clarity, it is amazing. And you don't see how it is that you are contributing to the very thing you keep complaining about. You don't see it.
Never do.
And the worst thing is that you know whom you're going to influence? Your own children.
And, look, if we keep saying, and we've heard statements over and over again, that leaders are indeed a reflection of the people, then isn't it, for all avoidance of doubt, remove that taint from people and say, if leaders truly are a reflection of the people, then people have to also get their act together. And don't ever give a reason for the finger then to be pointed at you and say, you deserve the kind of leaders you have because this is the manner in which you're also behaving. This is the manner in which you're also behaving. So don't ever let it be that the excuse is you. Or don't ever let it be that you are the ones who are producing such leaders because they've just come from the crop that is people.
Or the
that is Kenya.
excuse that this is what people are doing. No. Before you become people, it's you, the person. And it's what you do and how it influences your life. Because at the end of all this group activity, you go to your home. It's not as though we all live in some stadium-like place where at the end of the day we all congregate. Everyone leaves and goes to their specific homes.
Yep.
So when the people continue to pose the question and then ask, then what is it that we as Kenyans or we as people, we as citizens of any which country are supposed to do then to get things right? Because we don't have the power, we don't have the ammunition of legislation, for example. We are helpless, we are powerless, we don't know what to do. Then it is clear that people already feel shackled by this mindset that and in terms of my contribution to whatever this impunity might be, it's actually a drop in the bucket. It really doesn't make a difference. It doesn't move anything if I behave in a certain manner because I'm not seen on the public sphere. And I think we have to divorce ourselves from that kind of thinking. That you contribute in your little way, guess what? Everybody else is contributing. Because it's many drops that make an ocean. So if you're doing it, somebody else is doing it, somebody else is doing it. And that's where you have a national footprint of what it is. People's behavior, accepted or otherwise, just becomes the same thing because you assume that nobody else is doing the same. And then what do we have? Again, people that then represent you, who, whether you like it or not, think just like you.
You know, when you think of the changes that occur, what came to my mind as we're talking about this is, I remember when slave trade was considered normal business, meaning buying and selling human beings, normal business. People talk of the transatlantic trade. Now, even people who later became champions for emancipating slaves had owned slaves. People talk about Abraham Lincoln.
He himself was a great slave owner.
Why? It was normal. So what do you think happened to this person to understand that actually, look, this thing of owning human beings doesn't really cut it?
Mindset change.
Yes, and trying to refer to them as lesser beings, justifying what we're doing, again, doesn't cut it. Now, look at the journey. First of all, look at how entrenched that mindset was. We are in the 21st century. Does it 20th? Okay, we were. We are in the 21st century, and that mindset hasn't left some people. Otherwise, this Black Lives Matter discussion would actually not take place. No. There are people who are still quite willing to justify a certain position by considering other human beings lesser than themselves. And it's a justification that they would like and they would love. Now, it's the same thinking. It's not very different when it comes to even the political situation we talk about in our country. People think, again, that when you talk tribe, you are talking about ethnic divisions as per geographical locations. No. That's the con. That's the con. Tribe here is a social configuration of people who have similarities. And whether you're talking about political class, whether you're talking about a social class within a government system, whether you're talking about a group of people within an academic system, those are tribes. And at some point they converge and they are the same tribe and they think the same and they have the same values. And those are people who, in one way or the other, are privileged. Now, what they don't seem to understand is that those who are not as privileged as them also form a tribe. And they also have similar values. But they also aspire for some of these higher values. Now, when you shut out these higher values, which everybody aspires to, and you think that you are the only ones who should have it, you are fomenting the sort of problems no one actually needs, least of all those who are in these privileged positions. Because if you steal the sorts of monies that we keep hearing people stealing, where do you actually want to live? Because at some point the law is going to catch up with you. Where do you want to live? Okay, you have a family. Where do you want your family to live? What exactly are you thinking of when you have this thinking that you must amass this at the risk of ensuring that many, many other people suffer, a suffering which they need not undergo? Now, these things may sound unrelated, but they're all related to the very thing we're discussing. It starts with one way of thinking, and then it escalates. And it gets to a point where they actually don't give a damn about anybody else, other than their own little tribe and own little cuckoo.
It's that whole individualistic thing, and that's why you'll find that even, just like we're saying, we, the public, just sitting there and being the biggest propagators of this thing called impunity. Because this person who has stolen from what should have benefited you comes home to you, or so they're your relative. They come home to you and you praise them. Or if they're your neighbor, they come home to you and you're like, this is a Mheshimiwa. If this person hosts a party, you will go to that party. If this person is the one who's buying drinks, you will enjoy buying the drinks and saying, hey, this guy can throw rounds. And you know full well that this person is actually the head of your local hospital, and your local hospital has no medicine, and it's clear that there's a way this person has found a way of getting the money that should be buying the medicine.
Yes.
Putting that money in his own pocket and buying you drinks. And you're there accepting it. And then you will point fingers further up and say, Mutahi Kagwe and others, but forgetting your own person here, your friend who was buying you nyama and drinks the other day, is the person who's actually... Yes.
And that is the person you should... And is this a person you see and you can actually take to task?
Yes.
But by accepting his drink, you're condoning his actions.
Do we have a right, then, to call out leaders on certain things that are done? I mean, just like what we saw over the weekend, what's going on, and things that have even happened in the past, things that are ongoing in terms of corruption and scandal cases. Do Kenyans then have a right, or anybody else in any other country, have a right to call out leaders if you cannot call out your fellow Kenyan on something that they're doing wrong? Do you have a right to go further up?
You do.
Do you
have a right.
Sure, right. Don't you have a responsibility to call out the one that you're seeing next to you before you even start going above you?
I think that what you have is you still have the right, but I would argue that you don't have the moral high ground. You don't have that pedestal that you can stand up and say,
I can call out my leader and the people around
these guys
you
and say, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. They are stealing from us. They are stealing from our children.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if your friend calls you to come for drinks on Friday night and you know very well that he's serving you or treating you with the proceeds of ill-gotten wealth because of a deal that went good according to him but went south by all kinds of morals, you shouldn't go. Or call out your friend and say, you know what, this is not right. Now, on what morality then can you tell leaders and say, you know what, actually, we're not going to vote for you. We're not going to accept this kind of leadership in the country when the people that we have around us are not doing anything different.
That explains why the political leaders behave the way they do, because they know very well that, what unaniambia?
You tell me, and you guys are also in the middle of
But I gave you that money.
Talk about role modeling. In every sphere. We're talking about politicians, though they're the only ones. Why don't we talk about role modeling even in our own homes? Role modeling in the role modeling society as a whole. It took a twist and a bend at some point, and it took a really negative one. Because role modeling is what people see as being the norm, and they see it often enough. I remember there was a research project I was involved in some years ago, and while talking to young men in a certain part of Nairobi, one of the things that they told me, which I found particularly interesting, was with regard, we were actually looking at health, sexual health, really. And one of the things that they mentioned, it was a focus group discussion, was that even the young ladies who live in the areas and the estates that they live in, this was in this great city of Nairobi, they said, there's something you don't understand. Many of these young women don't go into sex work because that's how they think. He said, it's a role model. So I asked, what do you mean by role model? He said, okay, 2 examples. The older girls whom they look up to, dress well, seem to always have money.
Right.
And so they ask, but how do you get this money? So it's very easy. And so they'll be taken out. And on that, and you're talking about a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl, they may even be taken out. He said, once they put on makeup, you will not know how old those girls are. If physically, they already look mature. Said, but secondly, said one of the things that you will find from many parents, if they know they have a daughter who is good looking, that is a daughter who will be selling in the kibanda after school. So then people will come to that shop simply because there's a pretty girl selling.
Right.
So he said, now, some of these people who buy, whatever they buy, they will give this girl a tip. And I said, look, the entire introduction into this sex work doesn't begin with sex. It begins with the notion of free money. I said, really? He said, yes. He said, you'll find a girl who's probably 18 or 19 who has a boyfriend in the estate, but that boyfriend now becomes the security when she goes out. You will not see the boy, but the boy and his friend. It is understood that this is just a way of earning money. He said, but it doesn't start that way. It never starts that way. Now, in the same way, when you think about people who have hooligan, these goon squads, and they don't start as being goon squads.
No.
You're told security.
Yeah.
You do this. And then security prevents so and so from talking, prevents so and so from having a rally. So, for you, your stock in trade is violence. Now, give it time. Do you think this person is going to be thinking of whatever they had studied, whatever they had studied? No. They're earning a living through this, and that's what they're going to do. Now, something stronger than that needs to be brought into force. And it's not just a question of talking. This is where employment comes in. This is where employment opportunities come in. This is where a clear source of earning a living comes in. If one can earn a living, one will not go out to cause violence because they know it will disrupt the living that they're earning. But it has to be presented to them, and they must see it to be real. And I feel that our politicians know and understand this, and they deliberately avoid that particular path. They avoid it.
Oh, yeah, that tool they completely use, and they use it very well. Yes. But also at the same time, as a society, what you started off by saying, in terms of role modeling and values, you get to a point where it is not about whether you even have a job or not. Even those who have jobs have absolutely zero values.
Yes.
And you can clearly see by how they behave. So you, as the one who's there for, who has a job and who has some sort of income, and you're able to manage a certain lifestyle, you become a role model to the others who don't have a job. Yes. And if this is how you live, if this is how you conduct yourself, then the ones below you, the ones behind you, are not going to be seeing anything different. No, they'll be seeing exactly how you behave. They'll not be seeing the positive side of life. They'll be seeing this is what you do, this is how you get there. So somebody has gone, yes, they have gone through proper education, they've gone through university education, they have gotten this job, they have gotten elected into political office, and this is how they're behaving. You will behave that way. Even if you're not talking about people who've even gotten into political office, but the ordinary somebody who has a job somewhere, who has an income somewhere, and this is how they're living. But if they continue living the way they live, if curfews are suggestions, if insulting people is just a suggestion, if finding a way of stealing from your employer in any manner, form, or shape is just a suggestion, if you can just wake up one day and you don't worry, I'm not going to work, let me just call this guy and tell him, what do I say?
Come up with something.
Let's come up with something. Or my boss is my buddy. Let me just tell you, boss,
you understand?
So you cover for me when I am doing this and the other. And the boss accepts. And this is a person who's sitting next to you just saying, this is how people work in this. When I get a job, this is how I'll be rolling. Role modeling, I think, and you've hit it right there, is a crucial thing. It goes back into our values as a society. That impunity that we keep fighting, it starts somewhere down.
There was a French writer called Honoré. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce the name. Balzac is easier to pronounce than the other one. Now, he was known to have been part of the group that introduced a certain genre into writing called realism. Okay, and he documented the complicated nature of very many people in French society in the time that he wrote. Now, he's quoted as having said that morality is the indulgence of the bourgeoisie. Meaning, somebody who is poor and struggling doesn't have time to be moral. I actually disagree with him. Because, again, it is among those who are disadvantaged and unprivileged that you find the most religious. And a lot of the morality we talk about is embedded in the faith that people have. But it's a discussion that cannot begin and end. It's a discussion that has to continue, because right now, the morality that we are speaking of, or is what you may refer to as the new morality.
Maybe he was coming from the point that, because the bourgeoisie had everything, and they didn't need to look for anything else in terms of what would fill any holes. So morality then was something that they didn't need as well. They didn't need it either. They had everything in their hand. They had the riches, they had the position, they had everything they needed. So morality was something that the people on the lower end of the divide would then employ. Not for us.
What you were saying.
I can see that.
When you're at that point when you've achieved everything, that's when now you start becoming a gentleman. There are things you don't do.
Comport yourself in this way.
There's certain words you don't use, and there's certain actions you don't take because But if you're hustling, just so to speak, what you want is to get the meal for the day, and therefore it's the end that justifies the means.
Nice, it is gone out the window completely.
Yeah. It's the other way around. Let's take a break now. It's 25 minutes after 8. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are talking about moral high ground that citizens would have if they are also purveyors of impunity. Are we behaving in a way that we can then stand up and demand better behavior from those in authority, thought that we have placed in positions of authority? Are we behaving in a better way? When you see the kind of activities that we've seen over the weekend or even during this COVID-19 time, when people are told, wear a mask, you only wear a mask when you see a police officer. When people are told, observe curfew, you only observe curfew on the day that you don't have money to go out or place to go. That's the only day you'll observe curfew. Then, can you stand up and point a finger at a political leader and say, you are behaving abnormally? Should you? Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nyeri.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life.
Okay.
The weather with
Spice. Sunny. Well, from where I see it outside the window, but okay. Those clouds are going to come back later. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 13 today. In Nyeri, partly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Sunny conditions in Nakuru at 16, highs of 25 and lows of 12, and a chance of showers through the day. Eldoret is sunny at 16, going to highs of 23. There will be chance of thunderstorms later on, coming down to a low of 12. It's 22 degrees and sunny in Kisumu. That's going to change later with showers. Highs of 29 and lows of 19. Sunny conditions in Kakamega at 19 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 14, and a chance of rain later on. Mombasa is partly cloudy at 26 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 24, and also looking like showers later on. Malindi, partly cloudy conditions at 26, going to highs of 29 and coming down to lows of 24. It's partly cloudy in Kampala at 21 degrees. High will be 26 and lows of 18, and there will be showers in the afternoon. There will be a high of 31 in Dar es Salaam today. It's going to be a warm day, coming down to lows of 22. It's partly cloudy at 26 degrees. Joburg is cloudy this morning at 16 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 13. The clouds will turn into rain later on. It still continues with isolated thunderstorms in Lagos, currently at 31 degrees, and that's going to be the high. It won't get higher than that today. Even with the rain, it's warm, coming down to lows of 23.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, so we still see the problems that we see on on Mombasa Road today. The eastern and southern bypass is open, guys, so that can be used. Now we see some traffic on Thika Road from Survey towards town, and that was around 8:15, and that has started to build up. So around the Pangani underpass, you will see build up of traffic there as you get then to the Globe Cinema overpass. All right, but it shouldn't be too bad as you're heading in that direction. Okay, so still some traffic around industrial area. We're going to see that. And yes, everybody says the traffic that we're experiencing around the city is because of Mombasa Road. So I don't know if you want to remove Mombasa Road. I don't know how that's going to happen. But let's see. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know where you might be stuck, or text us 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 8:30.
94.4 Spice FM.
012-600. We're saying are citizens also to blame for the impunity that we see in the country. Are citizens the greatest purveyors of impunity? Kireke Kingston says, Eric, I refuse to be part of the saying that politicians are a reflection of ourselves. Not true. And in fact, they cherish this idea when they say it all the time. It is the politicians who set the pace on how the country will be governed. For example, what is the role of government? It says absolutely no way. Refuses that. Waikana Ibrahim also says that's very true. I can attest to that. They basically completely agree that, well, yeah, this is what we see in the country. What is it that then we can say that this is what we can do as citizens to raise the bar in how we live, raise the bar in how we expect to be treated by everybody else, and then now that also raises the bar for political leaders?
It sounds like a chicken and egg situation, because you're saying which came first? Who started behaving badly first? Was it the members of society, general populace who started behaving badly first, and then you give up representatives from the same society into positions of leadership? Or was it that you had few people here at the bottom, and then you had a leadership that was already tainted, and that was how they behaved, and then this cancer spread into society? It sounds like we're now arguing in terms of who started behaving badly first. But these people just didn't morph into leadership. They didn't just get there by some kind of immaculate design or concept. They didn't. They came from somewhere, right? So it seems that they're accepted norms in society, which we are saying need to be debunked. It needs to change. Because then if it is not that it has come from members of society, or it comes from the general population, then if you remove those leaders and put in people who you feel are okay, then you should never have this problem again. If that is what we are going to say, that is actually politicians who have a problem, then if you remove the particular politicians and you say that the general populace is okay, then you should actually never have this problem again. You shouldn't.
Actually, if we talk about it in generalities and talk about what we should be a little prescriptive and say what we shouldn't do and perhaps do this on Sundays and Saturdays, changes never come about as a group activity. No, very rarely. It is an individual decision. Yes. Now, then you'll find other individuals who are of a similar mind joining you. Think of anything that brought about change. It is never people sitting down and just agreeing. If they sit down and agree, it's because they think the same. They are of a similar view. They are of a similar leaning. But then they begin this journey. And it's understanding the journey isn't going to take a day and that there'll be resistance. It isn't any different from these freedom marches that people have had and the journey to independence that countries have had. It's not any different. It's the same process. Many people see the problem we're talking about now. They see it. Many people just don't. They figure out it's so big. What on earth can I do? Actually, there is a great deal you can do. First of all, you can ensure that you do not subscribe to that particular way of life. That you can do. That's
live
how you
differently.
start. Yes, live differently. If you know this is the right thing to do, do the right thing.
Let's go to the phone lines, and our friend Justus in Kilifi is calling in this morning. Good morning, Justus.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
We are very well, just long time no hear, Justus.
I've been doing the hearing from here.
All right.
Okay.
A lot of it. Thank you guys for keeping some of these topics on the airwaves. Yeah. I just want to say this. We, as a country or as a society, I think we have made impunity a source of pride. And therefore, in a way, when you hear people say utadu, it used to be a dare, but now sometimes you realize it's also a statement of a person's feeling of being important, utadu. Now, because of that, I think we need to look at the whole socialization process and reverse it. But the best way to begin, my suggestion I want to make, is that we need to go back to the law. Sometimes the police, I occasionally have discussions with some of my friends who are policemen. They can tell you, we can see the wrong thing happening. You can even arrest the person, but utadu, because some of these guys are too powerful.
Yeah.
Maybe now what we can do as citizens to take the space back, as you keep asking, let's go the Omtata. Is it called Omtata?
Yep.
I know it's Oki Omtata.
Yeah.
I know we sometimes we use him as a punchline, but what he's doing is a very great civic duty. Imagine if we translated that to a case like these guys who have just lost their lives in Muranga. If we had a citizen's demand or a citizen's case against those who should have kept those people safe, because you and I pay taxes to be ensured safety, security. We pay taxes for that. They're not service. They're not privileges. They're rights, right?
Yep.
Right.
There was somebody who was supposed to have kept those people safe in that venue. Who was that? The government, isn't it?
Yeah.
Through the police, through the agencies. I think maybe, I'm not a lawyer, but suppose somebody was to take up and sue the government for loss of those lives, loss of, for something about, is it called dereliction of duty?
Yes.
Because it's an offense to forgo your lawful role, which is essentially a primary. It's called what these services we give doctors. Their first line of, they're called what? These services which are essential services, isn't it?
Yeah.
Security is an essential service. So when you forgo it, it's a crime. Why don't we take that direction? Maybe our civil society should take up such actions and actually demand that the government assures us the government does its job.
Okay, what's
by
the journey there?
protecting property.
What's the journey there, Justice? So assume that now you take the duty bearers to court. How does that how does that end the impunity?
You see, if we go to court, if we go to court, right? As City was saying, some of these things are not mass. They don't begin off as a mass. You don't have to gather everybody on board. You don't have to win every case. But the fact that if somebody was to be taken to court, for example, the commissioner of police, right, and actually is compelled to explain why the security was not there, then those will be, they may look like baby steps, but there will be steps towards making institutions now take their responsibility seriously. Because if they are sued, the next time the police will not allow that to happen because they don't want to be sued again. And if let's say the organizers, the politicians again, if it's my local MP who organized a meeting and my cows were killed in that meeting, I sue him because the law gives me the right to for my property to be protected, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then he can be able to explain in court and say, no, I was not responsible. Then who did it? Then one of my supporters did it. Then that supporter takes responsibility. Because at the end of the day, we must identify the culprit. But this idea of saying, oh, my supporters, oh, the politicians clashed. No, they're individuals. The people who did those acts are individuals. And lastly, from the little experience I've had with some of these gangs, actually money is the last motivation. The idea of being mimi ni mtu wa fulani.
Yeah.
You know, mimi ni mtu wa governor, mimi ni mtu wa, you know, that feeling that they are identified with him and therefore there is a promise of a future, especially some of the, if you are looking for a job.
You could be included in the inner circles in the future.
You can, in that mythical future, that in the tukiwa, if we remain in power, mimi ni mtu wake. Actually, the money hardly many of those people see any money.
True.
It's that feeling that mimi ni mtu wa fulani.
Very good points,
Sawa,
Justice.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep. Thank you, City, and thank you, Ondu. You guys for 1 week there, I was worried whether the deeper state has sunk when you are off.
whether we've been spoken to.
Yes, whether you have been spoken to and gone to Seychelles for some long holiday.
Right.
Thank you, Justice.
Have a lovely day.
You too.
Okay.
Comments coming in also. Babu Lema says, what I'm saying is this. We've always been so good at speaking out against leaders and the impunity. Over time, I'm inclined to believe that we have to find ways to communicate this message to a majority of the Kenyans who unfortunately are not upper middle class.
It's an interesting point of view to say that the majority of people would not hear this message. But I still believe that regardless, if it is a message that is put out there, it doesn't matter who is listening. If it is put out there with regularity and consistency, it will spread. It will get to the ears, and you have the conversation in your own pocket. You move on to somewhere else, and then you have a conversation, and it is either made simpler or it's put into context with people in a different place where you would have that conversation. I mean, I remember having conversations with people in one place, and then you remember that when you go to another place and you have it in a different way, but the message of the conversation remains the same. I remember having conversations with people that I sit outside, the house with, people you would say maybe are who are not in the same, who are not of the same status as me. But we share the same mindset when it comes to things like voting. We share the same mindset when it comes to things like how you make an honest living. So I believe if it's something that's put out there with consistency and something that you talk about regularly, it doesn't matter where you are, it can actually still spread. But if you're not having the conversation in the first place, that's where the problem is. If you're not coming face to face with these realities, with these truths, no matter where you are. And I do think the people who were in Muranga over the weekend, for example, now taking stock of what happened on a Monday morning, do you really think that they're not having that conversation in their heads and saying, man, we've been played a good one? They've used us properly, and where are we now?
Maybe not.
It could be that there are some who are actually having that conversation.
And then after they've had that conversation, then what next? See, that what next is the big question. Because even as we have all these programs that were aimed at ensuring that the youth have something to do, and they are laudable and they're excellent plans, but a certain element of permanency is necessary for this state of mind or the mindset people keep talking about to change. If I know that I have a job for a year, I will think very differently from the person who sort of like plays hit and miss. Swahili word kubahatisha. I may get the job today, I may not get it tomorrow. But I wake up in the hope that I will get it. Very different from I wake up knowing I have a job. It's very different. The job represents a certain stability, not just of livelihood, but of a state of mind.
And it presents options.
Yes, I can think, I can plan. It's very different. I am less susceptible to influence. When I don't have that particular option, I am really susceptible to influence. Because I am at a stage where, and they talk about the bulk of these people, at a stage where when we talk about starting life, it's not that they begin being alive. No, being able to earn a living for yourself. Even that hasn't started. They're still dependent on someone. So the only way you see an opening is what is being presented to you. And the option of ensuring that this becomes a permanency and doesn't involve harming other people, but it involves creating value through opportunities, that is not a constant that is provided for by many leaders. And it isn't as though the options don't exist. The options always exist. But the option that must be pursued is you, the individual. That is an option that you can pursue. What do you do?
What you do with it? And I think that's a question that's popping up here, is that there are very many people then who may not be privy to these conversations or privy to this information, who may just be thinking at that level whereby I need a job. Right? So if somebody comes to me and gives me an option to earn 1,000 shillings a day, that's what I'm going to go with.
Precisely. That's what
I'm going to go with, right?
And that's the option.
I'm not being presented with an option of maybe I need to be thinking differently. Those voices that are saying the opposite actually are not the ones presenting to me. What's being presented is the one who's going to give me $1,000.
Let's go to the phone lines again. Elfas calling in from Nandi County. Good morning, Elfas.
Good morning.
How are you, Elfas?
I'm fine.
Elfas, what do you have to say about this? Impunity with the citizens, impunity among the leaders?
So, yeah, I'm just listening to a few info from the listeners. But my question is, which Mr. Ngawe huku Nandi County ndio netungwa radio?
Yes.
In Nandi County?
Niko upande wa Lilmuko.
All right, so our frequency around Eldoret and the environs is 96.7.
96.7, thank you.
96.7 FM. And then, of course, depending on which part of the area you are on this other side, Kisumu 102.5, if you're closer to that side, or Nakuru 96.0.
So, okay, thank you.
All righty.
I'll just tune.
Asante. Keep tuned in, Alphas, and Asante for calling in. So, the day the majority of people learn that politicians are just greedy Neanderthals who say and incite whatever maximizer says their quest for personal gain, this, I'm trying to avoid the word that he's used here. Let me just say it, dimwits, should wake up and stop bending to politicians' every whim.
It's a good thought and it's a good beginning. But you see, to move forward means you have to make a decision that this is what I want to do, as opposed to this. Okay? Now, there will be people, remember all these youth groups that, by the way, if you move into society, whether it's urban or not, there are very many positive-looking youth groups who seek to be engaged in certain things.
True.
And sometimes they need their hand to be held and told, given this is where you've reached, the next stage ought to be this. And if you look at government programs, remember we have an entire ministry.
Yes.
Not department, ministry that supposedly deals with the youth. Okay? Now, that's the next step. This is where you are. This is what you've done. Now, this is what can be. This is where you can go with this youth group of yours, and this is where you can go with what you want to do. That suggestion is not a careless suggestion. But the truth of the matter is this. One has to see it happening often enough, and one needs to see the result of it again, the role modeling, to realize that, oh, this thing can work. You know, people talk about neglect, and there's a ripple effect of it, whether it is in a family setting, whether it is in an economic setting, whether it's because of politics. It always has, not an effect, a ripple effect.
The people who talk about consistency paying, they actually knew what they were talking about.
Yes.
It's something that you have to see all the time in every space that you go. I mean, look at it from a child's point of view. When a child is just learning to speak or read or write, and you say to yourself, how on earth is this child who cannot pronounce one thing going to get to the point whereby they're able to read full sentences? But what is done at the very beginning stages of this child learning to read or write? It's rote. It is the annoying, consistent repetition of this one basic thing over and over and over again in different levels. Count 3 trees, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 over. Presented itself in very many different cases, but it is 3.
You'll get it.
You'll get it. And that's what I'm saying. In different platforms at different levels, it needs to be repetition and it needs to be consistent. That's the only way.
But look at even this country and the changes that we speak about. Throughout, the people who were in Kapenguria, they were not 100. The ones who stood out, they were 6.
There were 6.
6. When, in the Moi era, the President Moi era, we had the bearded sisters, as they were referred to. Raila Odinga, Nyona, and the rest. They were not 100. But what put these people together was there were people who thought in a particular way. Kwegi Wamwere, the rest. You think about changes that have happened. They've been the people behind it, but the individuals who've stood out, there are never many. They never are.
Change starts from within.
Yes. There's a gentleman we had in this studio, Eric, called Njonjo Mue.
Yep.
That man went to Huru Park and prayed alone in February.
Yeah.
Alone.
And people thought he had lost.
No, but he said this is something that we should do for the country, and he led by example. He went. Now, people talk about holding prayer meetings, prayer this and the other. Believe me, it all starts somewhere. Now, if we remove our minds from this group activity by which you say the standard is a group, it's not a group forming. It is you making a decision. And then if it needs looking for people who think like you, then take that step of looking. But you have to, don't wait for the decision to be made for you. You make that decision and say, I am going to follow this path.
But even if you don't have to look for people, you'll find that just speaking up, you would then attract people who would be of like mind.
You would.
Who would come along with you. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the major movements that happened in the world. I look at the Reformation, for example, with Martin Luther. He stood up in a meeting one day after having come up with all these notes and said, look, this is what I actually think. And this is the belief that I've actually taken. And by the end of that evening, there are people who already, had come to associate with him because they were also thinking the same thing. But what did it take? It took him to actually stand up and be set apart from everybody else. And then people kind of like join. So you would find that you might not even actually go and search for people who think that way. But everybody, maybe at the same time, is looking for that one person who's going to stand up and say, this is actually what I think, and it could be a different way of doing things.
And you'll get a following. Back to the phone line, 0719-012-600. John in Nyandarua, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you guys?
We're well, thank
We're
you.
well, thank you.
Yes, morning. Very fine. Now, I want to contribute on this thing that happened in Muranga, and I want to say that this is purely impunity on the part of the politicians, because it is not the youth who committed whatever happened, who had originated with the idea of that violence. They must have been organized from somewhere by the politicians. And they confirmed this by saying that they were given 1,000 shillings each, that they were being promised to go and do a job which they didn't know what it is about. An indication that we are headed for some very, very violent period unless action is taken. Our leaders are not genuine. And this narrative of hustler towards, a certain class is going to bring a lot of problems to this country. It is a thing which is bringing a very, very dangerous, mentality on our youth. We are preparing them for violence. So don't be surprised one of these fine days when you see, the so-called, I don't know whatever they are called in Kibera or Madare, going to either Mudaiga or to either Langata to attack people. Because this is the roadmap, political roadmap, which is being prepared for our people.
How
and
do we
it's very
stop this?
dangerous. It should be it should be discouraged by the authorities. Because this
discourage just sounds like those words that are said. For example, what the chairman of the NCIC was saying, what the police inspector general was saying, we'd like to discourage political leaders and to urge them to desist from. Is that enough discouragement?
No, it's not enough. Action should be taken against the politicians, regardless of their positions.
Okay.
And serious action should be taken. Because whatever happened now, young people have died in Muranga. Now they are going to sympathize with them. You are going to see them going visiting the families of those victims, and giving money to those families.
Yeah.
And they are the ones who have caused that death.
Yeah.
Particularly this wheelbarrow economics is not the best for Kenya.
But
it is creating a very, very big problem. Because for one, if in 1963, Mboya gave the father of Obama a wheelbarrow, could the Obama senior have been in a position to create the Obama who became president? We should have a way of
you're asking about now with a wheelbarrow or with some kind of economic upliftment?
What I'm saying, in 1963, Mboya empowered young people to go to America for further education.
Yes.
He did not give them wheelbarrows because he wanted to create a better society for those young men. And in that airlift, one of them was Obama Senior. If he was given a wheelbarrow to operate in Kisumu, where he came from, would they have to bring up the son Obama?
Most probably not. Point made.
Yeah.
Point made, John. Asante sana for your call. Asante for your call this morning. I think we are losing you on the line. Asante sana. Well, this conversation really has all sorts of facets. There is the behavior by the political leaders. There is what we need to do to stem this kind of behavior, especially as we gear towards an election, whatever, whether we're going to have a general by-election or whether we're going to have a general election in 2 years' time or a referendum in a couple of months, whatever kind of political activity we have coming before us, we need to have a way in which there's proper, better behavior by the people, right? And then by the political leaders. And then there's the issue of how the people themselves also behave as well. Do we get to a point where we then are able to argue that because, just like we were saying, because I have chosen that this is how I want to live, I've got to, espouse values, I'm going to live by a higher ideal, then it's possible for me to demand better from somebody else, from others. Because this is what I've chosen to be, because this is how I've chosen. I've chosen to live my life this way, the right way, and not encourage this kind of negative behavior or negative behavior. Then that also then places you in a higher bar where you can therefore demand. Without that, it's the whole utadu mentality just going round and round. Starts from you, goes to your political leaders, and comes back to you. Time for us to take a break and say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home, 5 minutes to 9. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home from 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock. But this show continues every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM, Nairobi 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. We also live stream on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on YouTube. We live stream on Facebook, and we are also live on Twitter. Good morning. We'll be back.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
So in the next hour, we'll be shifting the conversation and speaking to the chairman of Jubilee Holdings. Like we were saying, Jubilee Holdings is one of the largest investors, the biggest investors in the country. Jubilee Holdings runs a couple of institutions, including Jubilee Insurance. Jubilee Insurance is not just in Kenya. There's a Jubilee Insurance in Kenya, Jubilee Insurance Tanzania, Jubilee Insurance Uganda, Jubilee Insurance Mauritius, Jubilee Insurance Burundi. All those. And then if you look at the investments, they have the Jubilee Center, they have the Jubilee Investment Company Limited, Jubilee Investment Tanzania, Jubilee Financial Services Limited, Jubilee Investment Burundi. And then if you look at the other associated organizations under Jubilee, you have very many, including IPS Power Investment, Bujogali Holdings Power Company, FCL Holdings, IPS Cable Systems, PDM Holdings, and others. And all this put together under Jubilee Holdings basically just means that this is a very influential organization in not just the economy of the country, but the economy of the region. Because you're looking at all these countries, East African countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, you go into Burundi, you go all the way down to Mauritius. Big.
Yes, and if you look at even the investment, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any organization or enterprise that can equal them in terms of just the net value investment that they've had in the region. You know, when you talk about $1 trillion in this country, we think about what the government is paying in terms of debts. So if you have an organization, if you have an institution that has that investment and then some as its portfolio, then you are talking about an organization that has an economy that is almost the equivalent of very many economies in this region, if not surpassing some economies in this region. So it makes it fairly sizable. But even of interest is something that they recently did. They partnered with an insurance company. It's actually called, they refer to them as financial institutions nowadays, the biggest in the world. Allianz, it's called. It's a German company based in Munich. 139 years old. And it is a first in many things. It's one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. It's one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. And of course, this has ramifications. And this is something I think we'll want to ask the chairman of Jubilee to explain to us why this particular company and what this would mean to the country and what it would mean to their investments in the region as well.
And how much cash in bank they got.
Well, our media services were very quick to tell us that the entire enterprise was 10.8 billion Kenya shillings is what was the worth of what they sold to Allianz.
Wow.
Yes.
So Nizar Juma, who's the chairman of Jubilee Holdings, will be speaking to us in the next hour. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for us to look at traffic as we come to the top of the hour and then begin this conversation with the chairman of Jubilee Holdings. Good morning.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, looks like Kiambu Road is a trouble spot this morning. In and outbound traffic on Kiambu Road, and it's quite a mess as you're trying to get to Muthaiga and then get out to Limuru Road on the other side of things. So if you don't want to sit around for the next hour, don't go to Kiambu Road. Okay, that's a good piece of advice this Monday morning. Mombasa Road also. The last bits of traffic trying to play their way out now as you head towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Getting into the CBD via Huru Highway this morning may not be the best option. Try to get into the CBD another way because the traffic is bumper to bumper in that area. Okay, so we saw some traffic on Langata Road earlier. It's thinning out, not so bad right now. Getting round about the time where traffic will not be so bad, except for Mombasa Road, which is likely to be this way, heightened and lowered throughout the day. If you find somewhere you are stuck, don't hesitate to let us know and we can see how we can help out. 40127. That's the number you can text us on or tweet us, Spice from KE.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 2.5 minutes after 9 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi on 94.4, Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, Nakuru 96.0, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, 94.4 in Nairobi, and www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. This final hour of the show, we want to talk about insurance and insurance in the country. Just like we said, just as we were going to the top of the hour, we'll be speaking with Nizar Juma. He's the chairman of Jubilee Holdings Limited. CT, you were talking about the announcement that was made last week.
Yes.
Jubilee and Alliance. Alliance.
Well, I'm going to
company.
call it Alliance. If it's pronounced differently, I will ask those who know how to pronounce it correctly to forgive me. But it's written Allianz, as I can see, SE, headquartered in Munich. Now, Jubilee Insurance is the biggest insurance company, not only have in this country, but in the region.
Oh, yeah.
So when you find a champion or a captain or an industry leader partnering with another industry leader, the question that you then have to ask yourself is, what is the possible reason? And after asking the question of the reason, the possible benefits.
So let's welcome Nizar Juma, the chairman of Jubilee. Good morning, sir.
Morning. Nice to be with you.
Good to have you on the show. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
In the room, we normally have a seat reserved here for our guests, which we call the hot seat. It's
Okay.
not as comfortable looking as the one that you're sitting on, but we want to pass on the heat from here to you.
Okay.
Via this interview. So just starting off from what City has asked, what possibly is it that had led to this partnership between Jubilee and now we're going to give you the opportunity to let us learn how to pronounce this, the name of this company.
Okay. The pronunciation is Allianz, and it ends with a Z.
Right.
Okay, so it's Allianz, and it's a German pronunciation, and they've been in existence, as you rightly said earlier, 129 years, and we have been in contact with them for the last 4 years or so. And as you may know, that a lot of international insurance companies have been in touch with local insurers for some time, including with us. And until now, we have resisted to merge or to connect with them because we felt that, the only thing they wanted to offer us was money. And if you look at our balance sheet, that's not something that we are looking for. So what we were looking for is a strategic alliance, where we can be taken from where we are to the next step rather quickly. And I think that we found eventually that Allianz is a company that could offer that to us. And so we have just dipped our toe in the water. We've not gone the whole hog with them. What we have done is that, as you probably know, in the insurance world, we have general insurance, medical, life, and pension. And we have done a deal with them in general insurance only.
Okay.
So they will participate in all our general insurance companies in the 5 countries which you have mentioned earlier. Should I go on, or you want me to?
No, please go on.
Yeah. So we have offered them shares, some 51% or 66%, depending on where. And so they will be our strategic partner. And general insurance is 12% of our total business. And of this 12%, they've taken just under 8% of the total, for which, as you rightly said, they've made a payment to us of 10.8 billion. Now, when this transaction is complete and the new company, which will be called Jubilee Allianz General Insurance, excuse me.
Bless you.
So when that happens, then also we will absorb their existing company here, which is Allianz Kenya, General Insurance Company. So we will absorb that company into this new company, which will be called, as I said, Jubilee Allianz. So that is the deal as it stands now.
Okay.
And as I said, we've just started dealing with them.
What does this mean for the market now in Kenya with this new alliance? What then does it translate for the insurance industry here, or for Jubilee as a company?
Yeah. I think that first of all that, we get much more into technology. We get into state-of-the-art products. With the volume that both put together will be able to do, it means that we will also be able to bring down the prices of general insurance. And I think that this is the kind of things that we are looking for. We will be more and more into retail. And as you know, that our young population is not interested to meet people in person. They would rather do everything on their phone.
Yep.
So we will be having more and more apps and more things that they will be able to do on their smartphones. And so this is where the future is, and we want to enter it as quickly as possible.
Just looking at it, like you say, what they'll be able to offer then is that technological know-how. Is it what they have practiced in other countries? And for example, if there are examples of what they've done in other countries and the success that they've achieved?
They've certainly done that in Western Europe and North America. As you probably know, that they are also in 12 other countries in Africa. But I think that the other countries they are in, they have not been so dynamic because they also needed a dynamic partner like us.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last 1 year, they have bought 3 companies like ours. One is in Nigeria, one is in Morocco, and one is ours. So I think that now more and more there will be a bigger and bigger demand for state-of-the-art technological advances in what they will do with us.
There's something I'd like to ask you, Mr. Nizar. When one looks at insurance companies, at least there's a trend that I have seen. More and more they refer to themselves as financial institutions.
Yes.
Why is this?
Okay. You know that majority of the insurance companies, particularly when they are doing life insurance, are also collectors of deposits from their customers. So in other words, if you buy a life insurance, you are investing in us over a long period of time. And so we have a great deal of assets. And so we are investing these assets in other institutions and in government bonds and in the stock market. So we, therefore, for example, with Jubilee, half of our business is insurance and half of our business is investments in other institutions. I think John was mentioning earlier some of these companies like Bujagali, Ecom, and so on. So all of these companies are our investments, which then produce returns for our investors and life insurance companies. And also we have a company called Jubilee Financial Services. We also offers mutual funds. So that's why we are called financial institutions, because we are a major investors. And also the government depends on us a lot because, for example, Jubilee will have at any given time between 70 and 80 billion shillings in government bonds, mostly long-term bonds.
Do I understand you to say, therefore, that if insurance companies got together, that some of these problems that we seem to have that take us to borrowing huge sums from other institutions abroad, that this is a role that perhaps insurance companies could actually take?
Actually, the insurance companies are already playing that role. Excuse me. As I said, you know, a company like ours, apart from the government bonds, you know, which is considerable. I mean, if we are investing 80 billion in government bonds, that's a lot of money. We are in fact lending to the government. So I think that this is a function that we continuously do. Every time the government issues treasury bills, whether they are 6 monthly, 1 yearly, or 15, 20 years, we invest in them constantly. All the insurance companies do that. Excuse me. So I think we are big-time investors in government.
If we just look at general insurance, which is where the partnership has started with Allianz, what products does Jubilee have in the country on general insurance?
General means that it's motor, it's burglary, it's fire, it's theft, it's all of those general things. apart from medical and life. So all the other things are in general.
So there are
If you want to insure your house, or if you want to insure your car, your anything, personal belongings, your business, stock, all of those things, then you will come to us for general insurance.
So this is now what is not considered life, pension, or medical insurance.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, if we look at the development of these products in the country, because one of the I don't want to call it accusations, but one of the comments that you hear from very many people who comment on insurance and the penetration of insurance products in the country is that the insurance companies have gotten to a point where you're comfortable with the kind of products that you have and the way that you've been delivering them to your clientele, such that there has not been much investment in better ways of reaching out to the uninsured, or even coming up with other products that would then appeal to other cadres of people who would be able to take up insurance. What would you say to that?
I am afraid that I would have to agree with you. That, I think that there are too many companies, and, there are 45 insurance companies in Kenya, in case you didn't know. So, and quite a lot of these companies are not substantial. So there's a lot of competition going on, and I would probably say that more than half of these companies are not able to meet their commitments. In other words, that they don't have enough funds to run their businesses, leave alone pay the claims. So I think that everybody sticks to, what is common, as you absolutely rightly say, to motor and to life and fire and so on. So I think that is one of the reasons, as I said right at the beginning, that we have come together with a company like Allianz, because we want to bring in state-of-the-art products, we want to bring in at a lower price, and we want to give a huge variety to the Kenyan population in order to up our penetration. As you know, our penetration in Kenya is 2.7%, and going down. It was 2.9.
Yeah.
So I think that, this is something that we are light years behind South Africa, for example, and lots of other countries. So I think that the average in the world is double figures. So I think we need to get there. In Uganda and Tanzania, for example, it's less than 1%.
Yep.
So I think that this is a serious problem. I think that companies like ours want to take a lead in this and want to, apart from bring in lots and lots of technology, we want to bring in a big variety of products which we want to offer to our public.
Nizar, is there room for bite-sized insurance, even as you're talking about these challenges? Is there room for insurance that can be accessed, by the average Kenyan if they pay a small amount every day? Because a lot of people in the uptake of insurance are not able to deal with the large amounts that they would essentially have to pay per month. So is there an option whereby you're paying a smaller premium, a much smaller premium, to then be able to access the services? Because the majority of the population is consuming things in that kind of bite-sized economy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is something we want to do more and more. We want to offer people to be able to pay monthly on their smartphone for their medical insurance or for their life cover or even for their home. Because if you go to the informal sector today and approach a small guy who's got a duka, he's got a shop, he's got a family, he's got, all of those things. And if you go to him and say, you should insure, his answer will be, sina pesa, because they think that they don't have enough money to be able to insure. So what you say is absolutely right. This is the future. This is what we are trying to get to, so that we can use those 40 million cell phones, and get them to invest in insurance to protect themselves on a weekly or a monthly basis. And so that, this requires also a lot of systems. You cannot do all of those things unless you invest heavily in systems. And we are prepared to do that. Our first priority has been to counter fraud, because with insurance and fraud, they are synonymous. They are. Everybody is capable of defrauding an insurance company. If you go anywhere, they will first ask you, are you insured?
Yep.
Because there's a different price for the insurance fee. So I think that we've put a lot of money in systems to counter fraud, and we are still putting more money. But our second priority is that we want to be able to digitalize insurance so that people can pay what they can afford rather than what we insist they must pay. So you make a very, very valid point. This is the future, absolutely the future. And not before too long, all of these will come into the market.
Let's take a break now. Nizar Juma is the chairman of Jubilee Holdings Limited, having a conversation with him about the insurance sector in the country and in the region. Insurance is a big thing, but if you look at the penetration, just like Nizar Juma is saying, 2.7% penetration in Kenya. Surely that's very low, and there's a lot that needs to be done. We need to find out why is it this way. Is it about the industry? Is it about the market? Is it about the regulator and the regulations that we have? So as we take a break, allow Mr. Nizar Juma to have a cup of water, warm water, and then continue this conversation. We'll be looking at the weather. It's 20 minutes after 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather
Nairobi
with
skies
Spice
sunny
FM.
in most parts at 19 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 today, coming down to lows of 13. Partly cloudy in Nyeri at 18. The high will be 26 and lows of 13. Nakuru is sunny at 18 degrees, highs of 25, and a chance of wet conditions in the afternoon. It's sunny in Eldoret at 17 degrees. It'll go high to 22 and come down to lows of 12 with showers expected later. Kisumu is mostly sunny at 23 degrees with highs of 28. We'll have some showers in the afternoon coming down to lows of 19. Kakamega is mostly sunny at 21 degrees. It will go to highs of 26 and lows of 15 and a chance of rains later in the afternoon. Mombasa is partly cloudy this morning. There's also a chance of rain later. It's currently at 27 degrees and will go to highs of 29 and lows of 24. Let's take a look at Malindi, where it's partly cloudy at 27 degrees. It'll go to highs of 29 and lows of 24. And in Kampala today, stepping out of Kenya, it's partly cloudy at 22 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 19 with a chance of rains later on. Dar es Salaam this morning is partly cloudy at 27. It'll go to highs of 32 and lows of 22. Let's go down south and into Johannesburg. It's cloudy at 17 degrees, warming up ever so slightly. We'll rise to highs of 24 and a chance of showers later and coming down to lows of 13. It continues to rain down in Lagos. Isolated thunderstorms throughout the state. Highs of 31 and lows of 23. And in Beijing, getting close to Monday evening, it's mostly sunny at 19 and the sun's going to stay out some and it'll go to highs of 19. And in Paris, the rain continues at 11 degrees and cloudy conditions throughout the day, highs of 15 and lows of 11. We'll take a look then into London, where it's partly cloudy at 11 degrees, highs of 17 and lows of 11, and a chance of showers throughout the day. And we're going to wrap things up in New York, where it's now Monday morning, 15 degrees and partly cloudy. The high today will be 22 and lows of 14.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings done right.
94.4 Spice
24
FM,
minutes after 9. The
Nairobi.
conversation continues right here at the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have Eric Latif, C.T. Muga, and Nduoko. And joining us on the line is Nizar Juma, the chairman of Jubilee Holdings. Nizar, as we were going into the break, we were looking at the lie of the land in terms of insurance in the country and in the region. 2.7% penetration in Kenya. This is such a small cake for 45 insurance companies to be fighting over in the country. And then, in fact, you're even saying this is dropping. It used to be 2.9%. What would we pin this on or blame this on? Why such low penetration?
I think that it's mostly that we insurance companies need to educate the public more and more. We need to sell them the advantages of insurance. The other important thing is that we have to get the public to trust us. I think that traditionally, over a long period of time, these insurance agents, I put it in inverted commas, were not scrupulous. And this has given insurance companies quite a bad name.
Yeah.
What we are now doing is that, building trust and, paying claims faster and faster and easily. The other is that we have now started selling insurance through banks. And it's bank assurance. So you can go into a bank and buy insurance of any kind. And I think that because banks have bigger exposure than insurance companies, and I'm sad to say that banks are more trusted than insurance companies. So I think that this kind of move will improve penetration. Also, as we go more and more into retail, and as we adopt more and more technology, so that people are able to access insurance easily on their smartphone, I think this will also increase penetration. And I think that this is the future. I think that we have to get into double figures, and we have to do it in the next 5-7 years.
Apart from what obviously you've said is the slow payment and settling of claims, what could be the other reason why insurance companies are not trusted by the market?
I think, as I said, was that, the origin, a long time ago, insurance companies were adopting lots of agents, who were going and selling insurance and pocketing the money, not remitting it. They were not getting insurance, and there were a lot of scams. And I think that people don't forget easily.
Yeah.
Now, companies like ours that have now been in existence for 83 years, your father or your grandfather probably insured with Jubilee.
Yeah.
So, we have a background and we have a solid base, and, we are trustworthy and reliable. But unfortunately, we can't say that for all of them. I would say that out of 45 insurance companies, probably 8, are doing probably 60 or 70% of the total business. And the remaining are still just playing at insurance.
It's a huge number. That's a huge number. The issue of education, as CT is going to ask his question again, the issue of education and people's understanding and awareness of what insurance is and what insurance then does. I find that personally to be a very big bone that I have to pick with insurance companies, because you'll find, that somebody comes to sell you insurance. They don't understand the product that they're selling, so they misrepresent the facts. What you've understood to be what you've bought versus vis-a-vis what they were selling, vis-a-vis what you actually ended up buying, are three completely different things. And maybe that's why now when it comes to me claiming with the insurance company, they tell me, but no way, this is not what you're entitled to. What is it that the insurance companies and the regulator should do, because they haven't done? What is it that they should do to ensure better education of the public on insurance?
Yeah, I think that what we have started to do already, is a lot of information on insurance apps, insurance brochures, insurance. We are educating more and more and more because this is in our interest. If the public is knowledgeable, when I became chairman of Jubilee, that was about 15 years ago. Nobody advertised. They only advertised was the annual results, which they had to do by law.
Yep.
And so from there, we have come a long way. I think that we are doing a lot of promotion and educating the public. And I think that we need to do more and more of this. And I think this is where technology will come in. And as we invest more and more in technology, I think that people will be able to see exactly what they are buying, what is it that they will get benefits of, all of those kind of things. And also, we are also investing now in huge call centers so that people can call and get more and more information about what we are training these people. In Jubilee, for example, we have one call center in our Jubilee Center of 60 people and expanding every day. So I think that more and more of this kind of, if you go on our website, we give you lots of information. And more and more of this has to happen. You are absolutely right. I'm not able to defend my industry and say that they are doing what they are supposed to do. Not yet. But I promise you this, the way in which we at Jubilee are going with technology, I think in very, very short time, we will correct this situation.
Do you think this would also help in the uptake of non-traditional insurance products? I mean, I'm thinking about things that you offer, for homes and things like this in terms of insurance. Because I think of other countries like now, for example, the United States having gotten out of, the fire season. But even if homes are destroyed, people have taken up insurance for their homes. And so, they're compensated or their homes are rebuilt or things like that.
Yes.
And I know that there are offers for such in Kenya. I know that there was terrorism insurance and things like that. But there's a reluctance for people to take up these non-traditional insurance products. And why do you think that is?
I think it's, again, education. I think that we are telling more and more of our people that you need to. This terrorism cover, for example, we were telling people that if you don't pay that extra 1 or 1.5%, your entire insurance will be negated in case there is a terrorist attack. And I think that even civil unrest is something that, people have to add to their insurance. A few years ago, I'm sure you remember, that we had, very bad result of an election. And, there was lots of damage done.
Yep.
And 99% of our customers had not insured for civil commotion. And we then had to make ex gratia payments for a lot of our customers who had been with us for like 40 or 50 years. And we could not abandon them in the end. But I think that, again, it comes to education. People need to be aware.
Right.
I think that if they believe that, if they are not going to be subjected to riots or civil commotion or terrorism, then they say, why pay the extra 1 or 2%? I think that's what human beings think like, and it's what I need to do today.
Yeah.
And rather than, think of something that might happen to.
Sure, and I think for a lot of people, there is that notion that if you pay for some kind of insurance that you might not ever use, that your money is essentially lost. Is that the case?
I think so, because insurance is what we call in the trade big payment. People don't want to do it. They don't want to make the payment. They are forced to make it.
Yep.
And in some countries, we've even encountered that as soon as they paid the premium, they are looking for ways to get the money back by doing a claim. So I think that the attitude is a little bit different. It's not to protect me and my family against an eventuality that is likely to happen. But it is that it's a bitch payment. I have to make it, so, I'm forced, so I have no choice, and I'll make it. Otherwise, I can't drive my car, for example. So it's things like that. I think slowly we need to educate more and more. We are going into the informal sector now, and, educating those people and saying, you have enough money to insure, because we'll give you one policy that's for your shop, that's for your car, that's for the medical, for your insurance, for your stock in trade, all of them combined. And then they think, okay, well, maybe if it's not too much money, I might think about it.
Right.
So it's a convincing game, but I think that we have to do it, and we have to encourage people by making sure that when there is a claim that they get paid. I am always constantly asking our claims people, to be on the move and to monitor on the dashboard how quick is their turnaround in making payments. And I think that people insure only for that reason. Everything else is blah, blah. They only insure because in case there is a claim, they want to be paid without minimum of hassle.
Yeah, not too much runaround from insurance people telling you,
Exactly.
you did not sign here. You signed below the dotted line instead of above the dotted line.
I know.
Too much. Time for another break, Nizar Juma. We'll be back shortly. 25 minutes to 10 o'clock. We're speaking with the chairman of Jubilee Holdings. Let's look at the traffic and then continue this conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Okay.
Spice up your life.
All right, looking much better on Thika Road this morning. Then trying to get into the CBD, not so bad. Also, most of the traffic on Mombasa Road outbound looking much better now. Just going to keep an eye on industrial area. With those two roads still closed, Lunga Lunga and Likoni, the construction continues, but it seems as if you can get through without any problems, having planned in advance, of course. So out of traffic hour, looking much better on this Monday morning. I don't think you should get stuck, but in case you do, you know the number, 40127. That's how you can text us. Tweet us also, Spice FM KE.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's an insurance conversation this morning, having a conversation with the chairman of the biggest insurance company in the region. This is Nizar Juma. In the room is Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Siti Muga.
Mr. Nizar Juma, I was thinking about the mention of Allianz being involved in Nigeria as well as Morocco and now Kenya. Would I be wrong in assuming that they're positioning themselves for when the Africa Free Trade Zone comes into effect?
I'm sure it's partly that, but you see, it's partly also that when you look at what we have been discussing, the penetration, if you look at the penetration of insurance south of the Sahara, the average will be certainly lower than Kenya. So I think that when a company in Europe or North America looks at these figures, they start salivating and thinking, that the potential is ginormous.
Yep.
So I think that is what is probably attracting them. Okay. And then, the other things like, lack of technology and, all of those kind of things also. I think they think that the potential is very large. And they are quite right in thinking that.
When you talk about training and getting sure that people get the right information, What do you do to ensure you, one, employ people who have the aptitude to do the work, and B, what do you do with ensuring you train them sufficiently so that they know how to meet the needs of the market that you send them into?
I think we do both. I think that we take people who are already qualified, and then we also do constant training on the job. So we have trainers that are on the job. We also employ trainers who come in from the outside to train. That we have big budgets for training. I mean, I can't tell you off the top of my head what our budget per annum is for training, but it is very big. And I think we are increasing this every year because, if we don't have technically competent people, it's very difficult for us to sell insurance. But one advantage of technology is that will make things easier. Because if you go online and you want to buy whether it's motor or fire or whatever kind of insurance, I think that you will be able to get a lot of information and comparison about the different products available before you invest. I think that this is something we are giving a lot of attention to because we want to make sure that we don't go back to our old ways, where people just sold insurance on the gift of the gap rather than giving technical information.
And do you think that this is, it's interesting that you talk about maybe people selling insurance and are not properly educated on the different factors that need to happen or don't know. And we've talked severally in this room about education for market demands. If Kenya has such a huge potential when it comes to being covered for insurance, obviously that means that the agents of insurance then have to be well versed in this. So do you think this is something that has to lean on the side of education for the insurance market in order to have this output that would then feed the potential that you say is there in this country?
Yes, I think that, there is a College of Insurance, in case you're not aware. And I think that they are constantly training. We even have considered, and are looking at the possibility of jointly sponsoring an academy for insurance, that we would do it together with the College of Insurance. So I think the need is there. I think that if all agents are not employed until they are properly trained first, and I think that the serious insurance companies like ours make sure that they don't send people out on the streets without proper training, because that is counterproductive to ourselves.
Yep.
And I think that more and more serious insurance companies are now learning that is the only way for us to continue to expand our business.
Is the relationship still cordial between insurance companies and insurance agents or brokers? And I say this because, even as you've alluded to before, there's what the agents have been known to do, some of them coming into the market with not clear intention of running the business as it should be run. And then there are those that are in the market to run a business, but then they also have some sort of friction between the insurance company themselves versus the agents and that relationship. Is it, would you say it's cordial? Would you say that there's room for improvement there?
I in our own case, I think that we do have a very good relationship with both our brokers and our agents. Because probably 60% of our business is done through brokers and maybe another 20% through agents. And then, there are other mediums like bank assurance and so on that does the rest. So I think that this intermediary are important to us. And so we do take care of them, and we make sure that they are properly incentivized as well as educated. I think that because if they are not, then we are cutting our own feet, obviously.
And in the role of the regulator, I don't know what you would say if you compare the Kenyan market vis-a-vis the other markets, for example, the Western markets. Are we heavily regulated, or is our regulation just enough to allow insurance companies to operate?
Now you are asking me to go into very touchy ground. I would say that our regulators are adequate. I think that they are increasing progressively the amount of regulation which they are bringing into the market. For example, this year they have introduced risk capital introduction.
Yes.
Now, however, right now, because of COVID, a lot of companies have been let off. But the situation is that, I am not sure that this is being rigorously enforced.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you are running at a loss and as an insurance company, and you don't have enough money to pay for your own expenses and your salaries, how can you pay claims?
Yep.
And you see there, and we find that often there are companies which are in this situation, and they are still, running fast.
Yep.
So, I think that there is room here, either for consolidation, or for some companies to be closed down. I'm sorry to say, but there is. Because if you don't have enough money to pay your claims, there is no reason why you should continue as an insurance company. There is no way in which you should be allowed. And so I think that we are all insisting that this happens, that consolidation happens, that companies are asked to put in more money or to consolidate. I think that, but if you look at, and this is not something that's secret information, I think that if your investigative people look at the results of 45 companies, you will find that probably 20 of them are on the borderline or in the red.
Mm-hmm.
How can they then, genuinely not find mistakes not to pay claims?
Which is where I was actually going with the question about the regulator and how robust the regulator is. When you look at the banking sector, the central bank, which is regulating that, is very much sort of on top or observing exactly what's happening in every banking institution on a daily basis. Do we have the same kind of hands-on approach in the regulation of the insurance sector?
I think that by and large, I think that the regulator organization is active, and they audit us, a few times a year, 2-3 times a year. I think that, so from that point of view, I think that they're certainly trying to do their job well. Mm-hmm. But you see, when there are touchy questions of, companies not having adequate capital because they're running into losses, I think that then, there are some question marks. Mm. And already you made me talk too much, so please, let's talk about something.
Maybe let's change the topic a little bit.
Thank
One of
you.
the things that stands out about you is just the number of chairmanships and board directorships that you have. You have had, you've reduced them significantly. So the question I want to ask is, what is it that motivates you to take up these positions? I am aware that many of them are offered to you, but what has been the motivation?
You know that I think about 20 odd years ago, I stopped chasing money for money. I know that might sound a little bit funny, but I think that I decided that, I had enough to live on, and so I wanted to pursue volunteer positions. And so I became chairman of the hospitals, Aga Khan hospitals in Kenya. And from there, then I went on to some commercial commitments. But all of these I do on a volunteer basis. And if people see that I can be helpful to them, then I want to serve. And if I serve and can do positive things for them and for the general public, then this gives me satisfaction. And that's why, as I was asked to do more and more, I took them on. But I think a few years, 4 or 5 years ago, I now decided that enough is enough. And now I want to stop. So I have slowly started...
or reduce, sir?
Well, I have started to reduce
yes.
The number of companies already, as you have done, obviously, your homework well. So I did start to have reduced them considerably. And, that I want to pursue now. I will still keep a few of them, not many, but I want to pursue now things that I want to do. And that I am, for example, doing the Blue Company project, which is my personal project, and that is anti-corruption. 500 companies have already joined us in this Blue Company project, and we are trying to get more and more and expand it in the region. So I want to expand on that. I do something called the Future of Power, which are also seminars for responsible leadership, which I have now done in 70 cities all over the world. So, and I want to write a book. So, all of those things are what I now want to pursue. So that's why I now want to stop. Eventually, I will stop holding directorships in companies.
And that is commendable, because what you're still saying is you're still giving back to the society, and you're at the phase of consolidating your legacy, not creating it. You've already created it. It's basically now consolidating your legacy. Looking back over those many years that you've contributed in one way or the other, what is it that you would say if you were to talk to a 30-year-old Nizar Juma today? You'd tell him?
I think that, I saw in my younger days, I was so totally absorbed by the pursuit of money that nothing else mattered. Not my family, not my quality of life, not how I did what I was doing. So I think that when you have that kind of fire in your belly, I think that you ignore everything else. And if I had my life again, I think that I would not do that.
What would you do then?
I would be more of an all-rounder, that I would not focus so much just on this one aspect. I would also look at the quality of my life and quality of the life of the people around me. I think that that is important. And I think that for the younger generation, I would say, focus on everything and not just on one or two things. I think because you can go into extremes. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, it seems as you do all of this, that then you're going into things that would have more social impact. I mean, talking about companies and who are interested in making sure that there's zero to none, zero corruption. Looking at the power companies that you've talked, the power elements that you've talked about, and hoping that young people. What do you see what kind of an impact do you see on this country moving forward? I mean, coming out of business for such a long time, hoping that things would change. What's your outlook, if you can be optimistic?
Yeah, I think that what bothers me the most is that our young people are today growing up thinking that it's okay to be corrupt. If I can make money quickly through corruption, why should I go through that whole process of working hard and making money slowly? I think that this is what, we need to change this. We want to make it fashionable again to be non-corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
People that work for my companies or companies under my umbrella are devoid of corruption. They cannot, even if they want to, they can't. So because they sign a document which says that I will not give or take bribes, and if I do, I shall be responsible for gross misconduct.
Yep.
Now, with that, I see that our people are working with their heads held high up, that I'm working for a company that's following best practices in everything. We pay all our taxes, and we are not corrupt. And more importantly, that a son or a spouse can say, my husband or my wife works for this company which is entirely corruption-free. And I think this is what we want to encourage more and more. And I think that unless we stop ourselves from going down that slippery path, I think that there is no comeback. And I think we need to do it. We need to do this now.
Indeed. We want to thank you very much, Nizar Juma, for speaking to us. Apart from the Silver Star that you received from the president in 1982, what other state honors have you received in the order of state honors?
From Mike Kibaki, he gave me a commendation and a trophy for services, selfless services to Kenya. And then I received other commendations from, they gave me one called the Bharat Gaurav Award. And India for, it was partly for this Future of Power program which I'm doing, the project for leadership, responsible leadership. And the insurance industry have also given me a Lifetime Achievement Award, which I'm very proud of.
Indeed, a very good thing. Asante sana for speaking to us, and we wish you a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All
it
right.
was nice to.
Same here.
Thank you.
Same here. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
When you have such conversations with people who have contributed so much to the country, and you hear the outlook and the way they are able to speak freely about what they truly believe and what they think, you end up feeling, it's, can we not get there? Can we not get back there? I'm sure we still have very many people who are actually even younger, even in their 30s, who are doing exactly what Nizar Juma is actually talking about, even younger.
Yes. It isn't something that, you see, honesty and what we nowadays call good practice, it isn't an invention of people who were born probably in the 19th century. No. It's a very current thing. And it's not just a question of values, it's a question of who people see themselves as. Yes. sometimes it's a path that you follow that takes you there. Sometimes it's a path that you collide with while you're en route to some other destination. But it still takes you to the same position. One where you actually want not just to do the right thing, but to be also seen to be doing the right thing.
Yeah, and to live the right thing, actually.
Yes.
Well, great conversation there. So, City, as we come to the top of the hour and the end of the show today, today's proverb.
When deeds speak, words are nothing. Doesn't it become quite clear and quite obvious?
Quite apt at this point.
Yes, it does.
When deeds speak, words are nothing. Thank you very much for listening to our words this morning in the Situation Room, and follow our deeds as well, hopefully. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif, wishing you a great day. Now until 3 o'clock, you have uninterrupted music, sugar, spice, and everything nice. And then Monique will be here to take you home on Spice Drive from 3 to 7. And then we have the adults in the room. That is Emmanuel, Eric, and Barbara. We'll be here from 7 to 10. Until then, have a lovely day. It's now 10 o'clock.